Well, hello. This is a big one. I've been looking forward to doing this one for ages. Who in Doctor Who does not like talking about regeneration? Looking forward to it, and now analysing it, looking back on them. Sometimes, hopefully, they're the best episodes or the best stories. We'll be delving into all of that. But, it is a big topic. And obviously, the longer this show goes on, the more there is to say about it. So please, in the thread, and those of you watching later, we can go in many, many directions. I mean, what was once a genius idea to sustain a show potentially forever, but definitely covering the key television years of human history, seems to feel a little tarnished, tired. Doesn't Regeneration look tired? Or does it look very comic strip now? Or very gimmicky? Or has Russell Davies and Stephen Moffat, in their times as showrunners, rocked it and redefined it, or rejuvenated the regeneration process? Let's face it, without it, there's no show. It would be parked with the 60s relics that lasted a few years, like Avengers, Lost in Space, etc. I think where I'm coming from regarding regeneration is it's evolved from a key staple of the programme, presented differently. I mean, let's face it, when you knew there was a regeneration in the 60s and 70s and 80s, you didn't know what it was going to look like. You didn't know how it was going to build to it. Whereas now there's a set formula. You've got that yellow garlic bread aura effect. You've got various things that you can kind of expect. And that's the bit I'm not sure I'm happy with. So has it become spoiled? Are we sick of it? It used to be something we did look forward to. There were the top episodes of Doctor Who, as I said. Now they arrive like the cliched 3 buses in a row. And regeneration that was seen as a private, sacred moment for the character and the actor is now, God, almost a weapon or something to destroy. I mean, look at Time of the Doctor. So we'll be looking tonight at, has it been ruined or wrecked? When did that happen, if you believe that? What are the 5 worst aspects of regeneration, if that's where you stand? Our favourite regenerations, and why do they work, those ones? 5 ways regeneration could be revived and made exciting again. We'll have the Dialogue Doctors segment when we look at some of the key dialogue in some of the regenerations that we want to talk about. And we'll look at all the flavours of everything else. And Willie and Wokey are here. They've been doing their bit for the show. So it's not all about me. That's the monologue over, folks. So let's get everybody on. So hello, Michelle. I'm saying hello, Michelle, but if I need to minimize myself first, really. Hello, Michelle.
Hello.
Feeling good? You've regenerated into number 5.
Yes, I have.
A very good one, I have to say. And that means
it's my favorite episode of all time. So,
well, yeah, there you go. Spoiler for the discussion. There you go. And welcome, Jeremy.
Hello. Right.
I mean, it's terrible that when you appear on our show, you never set up your stage.
Show off.
I can see there he's got some key ones. You've got Caves of Androzani there, definitely. I can see that. Yeah. And War Games and that. So welcome. Nice. And there's now.
Hello. I am back. Have you missed me?
What's your name again? No, sorry. Yeah, we have. So, Cinnamon.
I'm sorry, I don't have any change on me.
Yeah, sorry. Move along.
I've got a hat. I'll get my hat. You put a coin in it.
And hello, Bobby.
Hey, greetings.
Good to have you on again as well. So,
yes, glad to be back. Yeah.
So let's get down to it. This is the thing we've all been talking about. I've been talking on Twitter on half the day. Regeneration. So let's get to it. My big first question is, I mean, if you take a look at what I said in the actual thumbnail, does regeneration need regenerating? So I'm going to start with that element of, do you think the program has started to get it wrong? I mean, we're allowed to be positive overall. We're allowed to say, look, we love the show and regeneration is a brilliant idea. But where has it made a misstep? Where has it actually gone too far? Where has it amended things too far? So where does anybody want to start? Where do you stand on regeneration at the moment? We've had quite a few. What about you, Bobby?
Yeah, I don't think it needs regenerating. I think RTD is borrowing from the Spider-Verse and the multiverse, and I think Doctor Who should just be Doctor Who.
Mm-hmm.
Jerry?
I wish I knew what Bright Eyes was.
Yes. Oh yes, number one in the about 1980, I think. Jeremy, your initial thoughts on
Oh,
where
my
you
performer.
stand at the moment.
I'm not keen on the bi regeneration, and I much prefer the old-fashioned regeneration where you've transmogrified into the next actor, which I think is much better than today's regeneration, where you see them, sparks come out of their hands and etc.
So far, and I'll get everybody on, but JWC, Leave It Alone. Then we've got Cybermat Strikes, too many regenerations. I know there's an element of, is it devalued? Obviously, JWC is now explaining to good old Cinnamon about that one. Michelle, your thoughts on regeneration, where we stand today?
I agree with some of the earlier posters. I think we're having too many regenerations, and also, while it was exciting to see on TV, I'm really having some issues with the bi regeneration because again, it takes away the risk and the element of that all the doctors survive. I mean, yeah, sure, we love it, would love that, but that's part of the show is letting go. And again, it's this thing that I always talk about again. Death is a natural part of life, and it's taking away that naturalness of death because everybody has to live in modern Who.
Yeah, and anybody watching us, we will look specifically at certain types of regeneration, and bi generation being the most recent one, we'll get a section, don't you worry, because it's not us having a pile drive into Doctor Who or RTD. What we're trying to look at is which bits could we pull back on and save the show and keep the core. Clearly, regeneration is a brilliant idea. Cinnamon, where do you stand today on regeneration?
Well, it's a great concept, and we wouldn't be here talking about it. I probably certainly wouldn't. It's kept the show going for a lot longer than probably envisioned at the time when they created it. It was probably the best and smartest decision, creatively wise, they probably ever made. Yeah, and I feel like it's been devalued, or I think it's been watered down. I think the build up of a regeneration, the mysterious nature around it, the big event that it would be, when a regeneration story was always a big thing, and stories have always usually done fairly well. So obviously some better than others. But I just think, I just think recently it's become too much of a gimmick. It's been played around too much, and I think the stardom of it, the surprise of it has been watered down, I say.
Yeah. Right, we're just warming up at the moment, so I'll go gentle on several things. So don't worry. Now, as you know, early in the show, I do actually say, subscriptions are important for the Whoniverse, and of course, the two Who puppets, the Huppets, I'm going to call them, they are pleading. In fact, there is a, and I'll show you a trailer very soon. In a few minutes, I'll show you the trailer to their location, big budget filming in Spain to do the two Doctors. So stay with us. In a few minutes' time, I'll show you the trailer. But they have, the context to their story is they went to Spain because they thought they needed to give me more subscriptions. But part of the issue was that we needed to convert my subscriptions into galactic credits. And I'm actually going to make a big plea for the 14th Doctor, because we all saw him in The Giggle, and he looks a broken man. He looks a broken Time Lord, a Time Lord who needs our subscriptions, our galactic credits to actually help him out, because I actually think he needs, a bit more help than actually just living in, Donna Noble's garden and, helping out with the weeding when she needs it. I just think it's a bit too sad. So please help with the galactic credits and giving us a subscription. Now, I'm going to say, right, let's just get us going here. Guess the regeneration, okay? This is where William Woke have helped us out. Now, I think we all know that one, don't we? That's not a regeneration, but of course, William Woke did want to show us how creative they are at actually trying to kind of depict.
Fix the Dragonfire.
Yeah.
So look at the current TARDIS anyway.
Yeah, I mean, look at that. He risked his life there. I mean, honestly, you can't knock it, can you? So, guess the regeneration, right? Now, in the thread as well, I want everybody to look at William Walkie's shots and which regeneration is this? Who's first to it? So fingers on the buzzers. Which regeneration? Let's have a look here. Which
Do we join in?
Yes, please do. Please do. Which regeneration is this?
I remember when the doctor was me. Is it Matt Smith, the Peter Capaldi? No, I got the reverse order.
Well, you see, obviously we've got a problem because it's only the puppets and they don't know what they're doing. Anybody got another guess?
By regeneration?
By regeneration?
No.
It is possible because I've got them next to each other and that they thought that, but of course they don't have very good special effects. They thought they were doing the William Hartnell to Patrick Troughton.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, but I think it was a fair guess to say by generation because if I went lower down, they might be sharing the same underpants. We don't know. So that is possible. So there's the first one. Right. Not a good start. Maybe the puppets need to try harder to get me galactic credits. Right. Okay, then. Which regeneration is this?
Oh, wow.
I mean, we haven't had millions. What?
Is that the Watcher regeneration? No, because he was he was white.
There's I think it's less than a subtle
Second Doctor.
The which one?
Second Doctor, maybe.
So you mean at the end of the War Games?
Oh, interesting.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, it's the third Doctor, is it?
There you go. Right.
Oh,
Jeremy,
the Spider Caves.
I said third Doctor.
Oh, did you say the third? I thought you said the second. I'm sorry, Cinnamon. Okay, Cinnamon, I'll give you the point.
Well, I said well.
Isn't it?
Yes, he's in the cave, the crystal cave, to see the Queen's
That's what I'm
Spider,
thinking. I said, yeah, because of all the jewels and the diamonds and the
yeah.
Metabilis, right? Yeah.
That was a good regeneration, wasn't it? I thought I liked
Yeah.
that. I like the idea when I read in the book he was riddled, and with all that radiation and all the rest of it, and I thought, oh, bless him. Right. Oh, what about this one? Oh, that's it. Oh, we do repeats. Like I said, I'm like BBC. Right. Okay.
Boxing Day repeated Planet of the Spider.
Yeah.
Right. Which regeneration is this?
Logopolis.
Hey, there you go. Logopolis. Of course it is. How could
I see what you're saying. Yeah. Hanging upside down, right on the tower. There was
Oh, he's risking his life for the universe. I mean, honestly. I mean,
that's right.
This is heavy stuff. So well done, Willie, for that. They got that one quickly. What about this one?
Castrovalva.
Well, it's got Ivy, but I'm not giving you it.
The second and the third Doctor.
This wasn't Willie's idea.
Yeah.
Oh yes.
He comes out of the TARDIS and faints at the beginning.
Right, falls over. Yeah, right.
It's linked to his regeneration. I think Willie was trying to kind of think the reason why he regenerated.
Yeah,
was this the time in the Ronnie? No.
I just hope there's not poison ivy.
Sylvester wearing a wig.
So
is he mooning us?
So
looks like it.
Willie seems to
It certainly is that.
Well, Willie seems to think this is the caves of Androzani, where he's in a Spectrox nest, and he gets.
Oh, right.
Yeah, I know. Maybe that.
Well, you couldn't have gotten Wokey to at least stuff his bosom a little bit.
One more. Let me just see where I can get that one from. Have to get the right one. Right. Okay. Which one's this? I've given you clues.
Oh,
I can't see it.
Look to the top left.
Apple. Apples, I can't see.
He's
this I don't want to go. 10 to 11, is it?
He's he's on the regeneration floor.
11th Doctor's regeneration.
What is it? I can't see it.
So I thought the clue was in
Looks like
the top left corner. I thought was the clue for this regeneration.
It's Fifth Doctor's. I know what it is. It's Perry's breasts.
There you go.
Oh yeah, right there you go.
There you go. So
At least he died happy.
unlike Peter Davison, who went off his rocker for having to fight again.
Was he looking at a Cox's Pippins? Was it?
Could you get away with saying that now? I mean, so there you go, folks. There you go. So, which regeneration? William Woki, well done there for that. So, in a few minutes' time, we will show you a bit of their trailer. It's only 50 seconds long, so we'll go into that in a minute. So, I asked everybody how they felt about regeneration, and we give a kind of overview. What's the worst regeneration we saw, and the one that you'd like us to explore how we can kind of dig back from it? So, Michelle, I remember on the violence, we started with you, and you went straight for Trin Dilemma. In this case, where did they get regeneration wrong? The writer got it wrong. It was badly presented, and it kind of mucked up. Where was it?
Poor Colin Baker, his regeneration into Sylvester McCoy. That at the time of the Ronnie.
Right.
Poor man. I mean, he didn't even get a regeneration story. He just like got a paper cut on the TARDIS and regenerated.
Mind you, I totally get him. Why the hell would you go back when they've sacked you?
I totally don't blame him.
Exactly right.
Yeah. So I know what you mean. It's this, isn't it? It's wearing the wig, and the Rani comes in. It's the man I want. Leave Bonnie Lanford alone, and all that kind of stuff. But you also said time in the Rani itself. I mean, we know that
the episode that happened in. I mean, but yeah.
What did they get wrong? I mean, okay, they can't help Colin Baker isn't going to arrive and isn't going to share his hair and all the rest of it. So, and physically, Colin Baker and Sylvester McCoy are so different that they did have a problem. So, in how it was written,
idea of how he regenerated. I mean, he just got a bump on. How many times has the Doctor been thrown on the TARDIS console, and now all of a sudden he's regenerating?
One of the things I didn't like about that regeneration, apart from the obvious, was sometimes he's saving the world. Sometimes he's saving somebody. Sometimes being very heroic. This was, as you say, he was hit from space, it looked like, didn't it? The Rani shot him. And yes, like you say, he's knocked himself against the TARDIS console. There was no who was he saving? It wasn't saving anybody. It was a non-heroic regeneration, and that disappointed me, because no Doctor deserves to regenerate.
And is now picked on in the world of official Doctor Who media. Several years ago, there was a video where Strax was going through and detailing every Doctor's regeneration. He's like, look at this weak and puny one. He just bumped himself on the console and he died.
Yeah, I didn't. What are other people's thoughts on this one, on where they got it wrong? Or are we being too harsh, honestly? Because you can't get the actor back. So did they make the best of it? Did you like the way they set up the new Doctor? Sorry.
I think they made the best of it, and I thought that regeneration was okay. I think it was possible. It wasn't the best regeneration, but it was all right. It was okay. I like the fact that, on his face down, and then he just turns over, and then he's regeneration. So I think that's okay.
Harpo Marx, he was really. I mean, I thought. What were you going to say, Cinnamon, as well?
I think where they went wrong was sacking Colin Baker for a start.
Yeah.
I think they could have avoided that. For being honest, I did quite like. Well, actually, I think they did the best job they could, given the fact that they shot themselves in the foot.
Yeah.
I think the Seventh Doctor. I think Sylvester McCoy playing the Sixth Doctor, regenerating to the Seventh. I think he did a good job. I mean, when you look at the fact that he's got a wig on again, this only really works when you've got Big Finish, because Big Finish did manage to sort of resolve this and do it justice, managed to fix this regeneration and give it that heroic ending and give it a more fitting ending to the Sixth Doctor. But unfortunately, a lot of people don't view Big Finish as canon, or at least some of it anyway. If you to take Big Finish purely away from it and you just look at it purely as a TV story, it's a failure. You know, it's like you say, it's ridiculed. It's embarrassing. It confuses everyone. I mean, I see people who rewatch Classic Who and they do their reaction videos to it, and when they get to the story, they are so confused. And you know, again, it's not a great look.
And to be fair, you know, when in fandom and on Twitter and on a lot of these YouTube streams, people think we're just piling into New Who and Classic Who was amazing. Well, this was a Classic Who story, and they ballsed it up. They ballsed it up because they sacked the actor before they had him committed to doing a regeneration. So that was stupid. It wasn't a good story. As I said, he wasn't heroic. So I think that was disgraceful, really. I mean, you know, the Doctor, if you don't understand the Doctor as a character and you can't write, because every regeneration I thought is the one when you peak, you know, you think if they've had a bad run, this is going to be a good finish. Even when I was looking forward to Jodie Whittaker's, I thought this might be a good regeneration. You know, you look forward to them. So in that respect, I thought it just didn't set it up well enough. And of course, the sad thing is they were comparing themselves to Robot, I think, when they were told that by, you know, the Buddhist monk there, the Time Lord, Campo, and he said, the next Doctor might be erratic. What they did with Time and the Rani is make him erratic, but erratic in a kind of way where everybody was trying to work out, well, I don't know, he's coming across as clumsy and weak and unable to decide that the Rani's just playing cosplay and isn't Bonnie Lanford, you know, hello. I don't know. Right. Well, I saw in the thread that people were mentioning the Timeless Child and mentioning the bi-regeneration as two of the baddies to mention. So we will come to them. I'm just going to check with the panel first. So, Jeremy, your worst regeneration, one you'd love to be erased.
Jodie Whittaker regeneration.
Oh, you mean into Jodie, you mean?
Yeah, so we didn't get Jodie. But I think the bi-regeneration is a bit of a clunker.
Right, let's go for it then. It's been mentioned in the thread, and you've mentioned it now, and it's very topical. It's the last one, so go for it, Jeremy. Bi-generation. What's the problem with it? I can't stand. I struggle to say it.
Well, it's not like your normal regeneration, and the fact that you've got David Tennant's Doctor sat at home with the Donna, etc., living a quiet life is just absolutely stupid. And I don't know what Russell T Davies was thinking about. But what's done is done now. He's got to ride with it. Mm-hmm. In the same way as an origin for Jodie Whittaker's, which just didn't work. Can
everyone just check their mics, because there's some heavy breathing from one of them, just to check, please. That's all. I know it's not here. So, Jeremy, again, like I did with the other regeneration, was it badly written? I mean, or was it the fact that they missed the point of what regeneration should be, or was it because they served the Doctor? I mean, one of my issues with this, because I'm trying to ignore RTD when he does Unleashed, because it's when he's on Unleashed he says strange things like every Doctor lives and stuff. My issue was, I think this so badly served David Tennant's Doctor. It wasn't a fair and yeah. Anyway, that's
he was going out good. There was an acceptance. This time he's like, I'm ready to go. He's holding the hands of his companions, which was sweet. They're with them, and then all of a sudden it's just like, oh, I'm still here, and then here's another dude.
And the other thing I didn't understand, I'll be honest with you about this. Lots of people have read Screen Rant have just done another article about this, talking about this and linking it with Leela and season 15 and how landing in the fourth Doctor's TARDIS and because he still lives. My issue is this, because everybody, I haven't heard anyone say this to me. The bi-generation seems to say that each Doctor didn't die, but there's like a parallel timeline. But that's not the bi-generation that's on our screen now. Because if that's the case, you'd get two David Tennants. But we didn't. We got a David Tennant and we got Ncuti Gatwa. That's not bi-generation, as RTD said it in Unleashed, when he said there'll be 2 John Pertrees, 2 Patrick Troughtons. No. What you're saying is Patrick Troughton might turn into Shooty Gatwa.
What he's saying is that, and it's an excuse to explain, I think, Tales of the TARDIS and an idea for Big Finish to go on a little bit longer. He's saying that he said, and I think it was either in the audio commentary or Unleashed, he says the doctor, Pertwee's doctor recovers from radiation poisoning. McCoy's doctor wakes up in the body chute in the morgue. And they go on and defeat the Ronnie. He says not Sylvester McCoy, but Colin Baker survives also and goes on and fixes the Ronnie. So he's saying that there are 2 doctors out there. But what he's also saying is that the bi-regenerated doctor will live a natural lifespan and then pass away from old age. So that writes out Hartnell, Troughton, and Pertwee.
But it doesn't explain why he seems to be hinting that every other Doctor kind of splits, whereas this bi-generation...
More media, so they can have Tales of the TARDIS and go off and have your Adventures, which is implied with the Colin Baker one. It also is implied with Leela going into the 4th Doctor's TARDIS. And then I suspect also a Big Finish, because the guys are getting, all these actors are getting at the ages where they cannot replicate, and some of them don't even try to replicate the voices they had when they were old, when they were younger. This gives us an excuse to finish off the box sets that they already have, and then go in and start writing the new adventures with the bi-regenerated Doctor.
Except I understand, it's to show a Peter Davison Doctor when he's in his 70s. However,
excuses when they can come back and look like they're natural.
Except the bi-generation that he showed us in the Giggle didn't do that. It didn't show us 2 David Tennants. It showed us 2 different Doctors.
Well, I think it's because he did survive, that particular Doctor, and I think the whole thing about it was when he split in a separate timeline, every Doctor that did regenerate didn't. So again, like Michelle said, you've got Colin Baker wakes up in a morgue in San Francisco. John Pertwee gets up off the floor like nothing happened. It didn't need to happen with 14 because he didn't die, so it wouldn't need to happen to him. But it would need to happen to 10, 11, and everyone else. God, there's a 13 back out there now. But that is the simplest. I mean, there's no simpler way to understand it because I think it's all nonsense anyway. It doesn't work. And the whole thing, another thing, I've not really heard anyone say it, really. I mean, someone might have said it, but I've certainly not heard anyone say it. The fact that since when did the Doctor need to slow down? It sort of comes out of nowhere that, like, oh, now he's really struggling and now he's practically about to fall apart.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, he's put up with a lot of stuff and he's gone through a lot that the average person would struggle with. But that's just the Doctor. He gets on with it because he has to, not because he enjoys it, but he just needs to get on with it. So the fact that, like, it's all of a sudden now, it's the whole thing about him struggling, and it's just used as a kind of plot device to sort of have him live at the end. I've just thought about that as we started the stream. It doesn't make sense to how all of a sudden now he's got a problem.
And Cinnamon, could I add on also, I think it's also unfair to Ncuti Gatwa as coming as the new Doctor, because it basically says that Disney or Bad Wolf or BBC subconsciously does not have faith in this man as an actor to take care of the franchise, that they can have all these other guys as backup, so that when he starts to fail or perceives to fail or whatever, or it doesn't hit, these guys can come in and save the show or save the franchise.
And if I was doing a news show tonight, there's rumors that he's been shooting again, David Tennant, but then there's also other news where he has said he'll never go back. So it's this gossip and rumor mill that, silly season as well, but it just means the fans will keep thinking he exists because he actually does.
It's unnecessary gossip.
Sorry?
It's unnecessary gossip because, again, I've seen articles now about, will he come back again for another stint? And we shouldn't really be doing that. This is, end of the day, whether you like Ncuti or not, it's his era now. It's his time. He's the lead. I don't really want to see, as much as Tennant was my Doctor, the 10th Doctor was my Doctor. I love David Tennant. But he's at his time. Patrick Troughton had his era. Patrick Troughton had his time. Then he came back for the 3 Doctors. Then he came back for the 5 Doctors. Then he came back for the 2 Doctors. Now Tennant has had his era, probably longer than Patrick had his. He did 5 years. Then he came back for the 50th. came back now for the 60th, but I would say that comes as 2 points. If we were to go off a point scoring system, I'd say that scores 2 points because he's not just come back as 10, he's come back as an entirely new incarnation. We need to get away from this whole the David Tennant show, Doctor Who. So have it again, to have him in the background turning up, waiting in the wings, and everyone's gossiping when he's going to come back again. It's unfair to shoot, in my opinion.
Yeah.
It's like they keep banging on about how wonderful he is, how marvelous, how electrifying performance he is. Oh, he's so wonderful. Well, put your money where your mouth is. You keep telling us he's amazing. I think he's very good in what I saw. But then it doesn't seem like you have full confidence in him. You don't seem to be respecting him because you've got the popular Doctor, David Tennant, who's very popular, waiting in the background. It's like he's not got the room to be his own incarnation. He's not got the room to breathe. Because you've got
Cinnamon
in the background.
Cinnamon, I'm totally understanding this because when I do I'm new to this. 2 months of doing these streams, and people ask me about the puppets and not us. And of course, it's now we've just been going on for 30 minutes. I've promised you all, and so here's the trailer for the real stars of the show, not me. This is ridiculous, isn't it? Honestly, what about your puppets? Get the puppets on. So anyway, as you know, they went all the way to Spain to save the channel. So see what they got up to in the trailer. There you go. What can I say about that?
No puppets were hard.
Them falling on each other is hilarious.
I've been working on, honestly, Cinnamon, I've been working on the slow motion for them from different things. They've got in, I mean, when we were trying to even guess the regenerations, with William Walkie, there are references to Leisure Hive, Dragonfire, Web of Fear, Genesis of the Daleks. It goes on, and the 2 Doctors, because obviously we're in Spain, and Planet of Fire is a bit there as well, and we forgot to put Enemy of the World in. But honestly, thank you JWC and Peter. I'll say looks good. Love the Spanish music. Peter, the music's fun. I love messing with the music, I have to say.
Was there a bit of Caves of Androzani in there as well with the knife when the soldier puts the knife?
I think that knife bit, because I'll show the trailer a bit later on, just because you can see some of the clips again. The little things on their faces was meant to show you. I'll just get the photograph. Was meant to be a bit like, if you remember when Patrick Troughton as an androgum had all the warts on his face. And he's supposed to look a bit like Androgum. That was what we were trying to do. So with the knife, it's a bit cannibal, it's all a bit crazy. So yes, in fact, really, I think it's important that I actually just make sure you can see the clips just one more time for everybody, just to truly see what's coming up. It's going to be about 10 minutes, I think, the program or whatever, with 2 cliffhangers. So here we go. Let's just see what you missed. There are loads of little clues to Doctor Who in here. One more go. See what you find. See what you see.
That question, do they do their own stunts?
Three things.
Okay, then. So I'll start with the thread and then ask people. So JJ will say, is it the Watcher, Willie and White? Some people have said, is it the Mummy and the Orient Express? Somebody has said the Fridge. Is it the McGann in the Morgue? Peter's got, is that the beginning of the Deadly Assassin or Timeless 2? So Cinnamon, where were you going with it? What did you see?
Well, yeah, I thought the McGann in the Fridge, the scene with Walkie a bit off to the distance, sort of waving. I felt like that was a scene on Logopolis where he's on the bridge.
Oh, yeah.
Waving, signaling to come over. Again, Logopolis again with the regeneration, the falling. There's quite a lot of falling in that one.
It was a lot. He's
I hope they're getting compensation. For this,
do they do their own stunts though?
They do all their own stunts, and I had to wait till the whole beach was quiet because people were watching. We found it, yeah. And of course,
there's a strange English person playing with his dolls on the beach.
I know, absolutely crazy. I mean, Peter's going for it now, so the Fridge could be the Pandorica. Do you know what?
Okay.
I'm gonna. Do you know? I'm still editing it, so I'm gonna. Hello, Lynn. I'm gonna start saying to people. I'm gonna actually try and add even more references now. I've seen all these. So
a lot of it is very open to interpretation. You could look at a scene and, like, again, you could say, "Oh, McGann in the Morgue," or Pandorica. You can put everything in that.
Well, I'm going to put Peter out of his misery on this one because he's really trying hard. He said time lash with the tinsel. You'll find some silver tinsel. We were trying to do Planet of Fire when Chameleon turns into Perry. So there you go. There's one giveaway. We said big budget.
I thought that was a Sontaran episode with Tom with the sheets, bit of clean foil.
And that was one of the bits where we nearly did probably get arrested on the beach because people thought there's these two puppets. We're doing this silver little thing going on. Honestly, I think there was chaos. So sorry for the distractions, but we are advertising for the William Walkie Doctor Who kind of puppets and what's going on there. Jeremy, back to the real program.
Oh, yes.
So, regeneration, we've gone through so far. We've mentioned the bi-generation. I had issues with its writing, really, and how it undersold the 14th Doctor, who'd only been there 5 minutes. And obviously, the legacy and consequences of that were worrying. Michelle, my head's gone blank. Where did we go with you again? What was your choice of the worst? What was Time Lash?
Well, yeah.
So, have we exhausted the worst one to you, Jeremy, before I move down to Bobby?
Yeah, I think the Colin Baker one, I think Time of the Rani, I thought it was okay. I don't think it was the worst one personally, but I think by regeneration was definitely more or less the worst. Yeah.
Yeah. So, Bobby, where do you start on this one? Regeneration, which was the worst for you? Oh, you're now mute, so have a go at this. This is like being on the BBC News now.
Okay. Well, good now? Okay.
Yes, good.
All right, yeah. I would say Peter Capaldi and Jodie Whittaker, and not because we got a female doctor, but because I like that control room, that steampunked control room. It's a shame it got blown up, you know?
Well, can we pick on a few points there? I want to make a point about regeneration here. I'm not pile driving into regeneration. It's the most genius idea for any program for sustaining it. I'm done well. It's brilliant. But as you just said, Bobby, it's destructive power now. The old classic Doctors, I mean, you know, like when William Hartnell regenerated into Patrick Troughton, there wasn't even a puff of smoke.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the whole bloody thing goes up. I mentioned in my little monologue at the beginning, the time of the Doctor. Has everybody remembered Time of the Doctor when he was an old man and he got that regeneration energy? What was the big deal there? Because he blasted all the Dalek spaceships out of the way. But then on top of that...
Well, I would say, just on that...
Go on.
Just on that, I would say that, although we see him Dalek ships and blows them all up and we think that's a new thing, I mean, I'd have thought if you get in the way of regeneration energy, when it's explosive as it is, I mean, we saw in 10 when we saw the windows shatter or the TARDIS doors. Clearly, a lot of damage to be done, I think. Although I would say 11 was a far more explosive than probably 10 was.
Well, look at that.
I
That
think
was
I
like
think
a
yeah, I
nuclear
think it depends on the
explosion.
damage as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it depends
But in
on
the
the
classic
type
era,
of.
Over the top. Yeah.
he used to regenerate in front of his companions, and the companions have never gotten hurt. I mean, so why do we have to blow the TARDIS up?
Right.
But you see, before anybody slags me off saying, are you being negative about anything to do with Doctor Who? Can I just say this? Because I'm trying to make a more detailed point. That regeneration essence that's going on that Bobby mentioned being destructive and smashing the TARDIS up that he liked. I'm showing these two shots because when you really honestly look at Time of the Doctor, he wrecked the whole village. There were Daleks in the village, but it wrecked houses. It was quite destructive. And I actually thought, if you really understand as a writer what the regeneration process is, it's sacred. It's a private, almost religious moment. And the third Doctor's regeneration piled into that. And it's not a weapon. And whereas now it's getting used as a weapon. That's what I felt. Now, have I got some feedback now?
Yeah, you do. You sound like a Dalek now.
All right. What's going on there?
I've arrived.
That was Darth Vader. You're the Dalek.
Yeah. So Darko24, hello. I know you've been in the thread for a while. I did wonder if maybe the time was genetically augmented so that they regenerate on their feet and keep fighting. And energy burst is much more violent now. You see, this is it. It's been tampered with. But Cinnamon, you want to add to that one?
I think I would say that I think when we look about why was some more violent than others, I think it depends on the type of death. I think when we see absorb the radiation, when that is eventually released, far more powerful rather than just simply withering, with old age. I feel like how the regeneration actually comes about, I think it could potentially determine how explosive it is. Because we see 10 actually hold the regeneration back for a little while, and again with Capaldi as well. And I think with 11, you could say he's not supposed to have another regeneration cycle. So the fact that he's getting another one is playing havoc with his body. Again, it's just those little things that you sort of headcanon away.
We see
different changes. I think the next time we see it, I think we need to get rid of the golden glow because we've seen that a lot now. And
Yeah, too much.
See it if you look at the classic series, every regeneration was pretty much different. So I think you need to switch it up, get a bit creative with it. So don't need to have the great yellow glow every time.
Yeah, I know. These are all the questions I want to ask, and there's so much to pick on. So please, let's pile drive in, everybody. Enjoy it. I'm trying to kind of structure it so we're doing the main ones as we go around the panel. But I know what am I trying to say here? The explosion element is one issue, which I think misunderstands what the thing is. Then you've just said, Cinnamon, for example, the yellow aura, this garlic bread aura that kind of emanates everywhere. I mean, I think I always looked forward to a regeneration and what it looked like. Now I know what it's going to look like. And I also think, you see, some of the clever ideas from RTD, he's clever, but don't come back, because I think then he gets himself into a mess. Here's my point. When it was the Christmas invasion, you got that yellow aura that you've mentioned, Cinnamon, emanating from his mouth. And as you know, it then emanated into space where the pilot fish grabbed it and all the rest of it, and they located him. And now you've got this whole idea that this yellow aura is going to kind of, work out. Then we've got this other rule that happened, which is that within 15 hours, you can regenerate your limbs. And that made me think, is the regeneration 15 hours thing, or is that why the Jodie Whittaker Doctor could fly through space, go through a train, and just stand up? Because I mean, some people are starting to kind of mess with it.
I think.
Now, Cinnamon, I think what we're going to do.
That was a new thing when they introduced.
Now, Cinnamon, if you talk now, and if everybody else mutes Mike, and I'll nominate people because I think everybody can tell we've got some kind of strange feedback going on. So go on, Cinnamon. What were you going to say?
I think I was just going to say there about the whole, because that scene in David's first story, Christmas Invasion, where we see him grow the hand back. Of course, we've never really seen anything like that before. I don't think it changes canon because he doesn't ruin anything that's come before. It was something that was new, something new, and I think it makes sense. It's not just a gimmick. I could see it's something that kind of makes sense within the law and the logic, because if a doctor's just regenerated, or not just the doctor, if any Time Lord is just regenerated, I'd understand that there'd be a bit of a sort of a force field around him because he's vulnerable. That any Time Lord that is regenerated is vulnerable after regeneration. So if they were attacked again, for example, they'd probably go through the entire life cycle fairly quickly. So is it a bit of a Deus Ex Machina, as people would say, or it's not? People might criticize it and say, "Oh, yeah, but he's invincible now." Yeah, well, it's only for the first 24 hours. I quite like this idea, and it wasn't just a one-off like the bioregeneration was. It was just a one-off of that. There's no real point to it. It was just done for shock value.
Yeah.
Whereas this actually sets up. This is important thing because this sets up his entire arc. We see it. We see the missing hand numerous times throughout his run, and we see it again as it plays an important part into the Doctor Donna and the Meta Crisis. And we've even seen it again in the 60th. That kind of plot came back. So this was very important, I'd say.
I think what we've got to, and so if everyone kind of nominates who wants to speak next, because we're trying to, and I'm trying to say to viewers, we're trying to just manage the feedback issue. It happens sometimes, but there were a lot of things you said there, Cinnamon. I mean, and I'm joining with the thread. Matt fell from space in a suit and was pretty battered up, says Peter. Jodie Whittaker's Doctor wasn't. David Tennant's Doctor was when he fell in End of Time. And this is what I mean. I'm trying to work out I hate inconsistency. You can do things that I don't like and I'll go with it, but please have consistency, because that's where it kind of gets mucked up. Now, we've mentioned the yellow aura and the explosive quality of that. We've mentioned the limbs. Is there anything? I mean, I'm going to throw this in here at the moment, because JWC said a bit earlier. In Destiny of the Daleks, Romana regenerated 3 times, so that rule might be canonical. I think we all had problems, did we, with the Destiny of the Daleks in Classic Who, because it made it look like regeneration can be a vanity thing, that you can actually,
yeah, I didn't like that.
That you can, but it does link with war games slightly. When they said, Patrick Troughton's Doctor said, "I'm not happy with the face you're picking for me, so I will, can I pick my own?" And of course, they picked John Pertwee's in the end. I don't know. Is there an element where you can pick? Then there's the curator. I mean, how does the curator fit into this? Because Tom Baker's curator said sometimes you want to revisit the old faces type thing. So does Destiny of the Daleks and Romana's regeneration not look like a vanity project, but you can pick? What does anybody think who's in the panel at the moment on that one?
I think the Romana regeneration was badly handled. I think it wasn't great. But then again, Destiny of the Daleks wasn't great either. There's obviously production costs, cutting costs in that one. But no, I didn't. I wasn't happy about the Romana regeneration. I thought it was silly.
Yeah,
don't like a joke. Yeah. Kind of.
But that was what I mean. We all know that season pretty well, and I'm not defending Classic Who, but it went for the jokes a bit, didn't it? And that was a joke. The trouble is, it gives some showrunners an idea, because as you know, and some fans say, "Oh well, bi-generation works because of that happened then," and sometimes you're thinking, "Oh, you're dancing on the pinhead." Destiny in the Daleks seemed to be a joke. However, I can see how the war games did it. I want to pick the right face, and the curator does mention about picking the old favourite. So there's an element where it sounds like a few showrunners have gone for that now. Michelle, where do you stand on all this Destiny of the Daleks, Romana choosing different bodies, and my 2 references to War Games and the Curator. I mean, maybe this is how Regeneration is now. You're mute at the moment. You're mute, sorry.
Well, I liked it in the War Games. It doesn't really work well with Romana because it's almost, a little sexist. Like, oh, I'm not pretty enough.
Yeah.
Until I become pretty enough again. Well, the doctors were like, "Oh my God, look at me." It works in the War Games because that was meant to be a punishment. The Romana is, well, I'm not pretty enough.
I mean, there's a lot being said in the thread. I'm just trying to pick up on that as well as what you're saying. I mean, if Classic Who got it a bit wrong here, because now you'd say it was the patriarchy, because the 4th Doctor was saying too tall, too short, and he was basically deciding almost what Romana looked like, which you could argue is a little bit kind of old-fashioned, male deciding what a woman looks like and all the rest of it. So I know what you're saying, Michelle. Like it's very problematic for the sake of a joke.
Right.
Who wants to? I mean, I'm just trying to manage the audio, but who wants to join now on what they found problematic, what they would like changing? We've mentioned the explosive aura. We've mentioned Destiny. Go on, Jeremy.
I would like them to stop using the explosive regeneration. I think it's OTT. I know why they do it, because they're trying to get as much attention and effect to draw today's modern audience in. But I'd rather them go back to the transmogrification, where one actor's face blends in with another one. I mean, you could even do it with a blend, a CGI blend, but to have this sort of giving off sparks and it's a little bit on the ridiculous side when you think about it. If you've got Time Lords on Gallifrey that are every so often, oh, he's regenerating over there, look out, boom,
Yeah. That
was the best, yeah. That's
You're referring to this type of regeneration, aren't you, where they just blend the 2 faces together?
That's right. And they can do it more cleverly now with CGI, and they could do it very subtly without having if you want to increase the tension or build up the climax of the situation, you just do that through the music, Murray Gold's music.
Yeah.
And that just gives it the lift. But I think they've just got a little bit OTT with that.
The thing is, I'm trying to be fair. I'm listening to what you're saying. I've listened to what we're saying about the yellow aura and being sick of it, but we want it back to almost like as it used to be. But did this get it right? So when we had an example of the War Doctor turning into the Chris Eccleston Doctor, there you go. You had the yellow aura, but it did blend the 2 faces. How did you think about that, Jeremy?
Yeah, I mean, that's clever. But why don't they just try it, going back to how it used to be, or try a situation where, the new Doctor just steps out of the TARDIS, with no effects. And, as it is like Spearhead from space. So John Pertwee steps out of the TARDIS and then collapses on the floor. So they could do that with any actor.
Yeah. I mean, we've got TARDIS Spider here saying the McCoy to McGann one was good.
Creepy.
I'll be interested what people think about that one, because I thought there was a bit of gurning going on. That was one of my problems with it when they're in the morgue. I've never seen such kind of face like that going on. I mean, it obviously was painful, but I liked the references to Frankenstein. I liked that parallel narrative. That's the cleverness I liked from the Doctor Who movie. That was good. I'm talking personally, and I'm going to shut up in a minute so somebody can say whether I've got it wrong. But I loved that. I've used it in classroom. The parallel narrative of the Frankenstein element. And of course, when the Frankenstein creature was reborn, so to speak, he hadn't seen himself. He didn't know his identity. He was almost reborn. He was supposed to be Jesus-like, actually. In the book, he is Jesus-like. He's not a monster. And so they got it right with Doctor Who there. And of course, he comes out of that and he sees all those shattered mirrors and, you know, his broken identity or fragmented identity. I thought it was well delivered. So I can see what you're saying there, TARDIS Spider. Anyway, anyone else's thoughts on the McCoy-McGann regeneration, on whether it was consistent, well delivered, a nice little new vent on it, or was it not so hot?
It was like going back to the horror roots of the 70s on Doctor Who, to a certain degree, that bracing of that horror moment of this person changing and waking up on a morgue slab, which is creepy. I mean, you all hear stories, you know, it still happens occasionally in certain countries where people wake up alive in a morgue and they've been declared dead, but they wake up in the freezer, and that kind of creepy, you know, trying to bang out of the door. So it does go back to the Doctor Who horror elements, and also it's a, you know, interesting way of doing the post-regeneration trauma.
Yes, yeah, I'm going to have to stop speaking. It's not fair, but I agree with you on that one. Where would you go on that one, Bobby? Did you like the Doctor Who movie presentation of regeneration? I mean, one of the criticisms was, don't start a Doctor Who movie launch of a new Doctor with a regeneration. I did think that was a mistake.
Yeah, I didn't mind it. Yeah, I think starting with the 7th Doctor and the 8th confused people that watched, you know, Doctor Who for the first time. It, like you said, the horror elements of like Hinchcliffe era. So it wasn't too bad. I didn't mind it.
Right. What about you, Cinnamon, on that one, on the Doctor Who movie one?
Well, yeah, it's I've always quite liked sort of gothic horror of it. It's very creepy. You see the parallels of the guy watching the Frankenstein movie, and then him sort of. I mean, even the shots of like the hand and stuff. I thought it was great. Again, I probably agree. I think, as much as I love the TV movie, and I think it's very underrated, I think the whole having a regeneration at the start was a bit of, it was too lore heavy. I think the whole film was very lore heavy.
My issue is, and I've got it on the screen there, which is, we've talked about Colin Baker not being at his own regeneration, so therefore it was a very unheroic death, sadly. This one, he walks out of the TARDIS and is shot. It's a pointless shooting. I remember I've been on a thread before where people have said, on a stream before, where people have said it was too violent and too kind of raw modern Earth. I don't know. I mean, you know, he walks out the TARDIS, but it was just a meaningless shooting, whether that's got a message to it or something. And then, of course, when he's woken up, so to speak, in the middle of the operation, it wasn't a heroic death, was it? It was just a wasted death.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I think just to kind of get us going, because we're talking about regeneration and we can revisit the ones we liked and ones we didn't like and everything, but I do think we need to go to where it all started and look at one or two of the scripts. So I'm going to start with the First Doctor, and we'll talk about that. But then I'll ask our people in the panel and in the thread which other script you'd want us to look at with the regenerations. I've already said on so many shows that as a teacher, I really did use a lot the Matt Smith regeneration speech about death and about having different roles in your life. I thought it was beautiful. And actually, the mortality of, and you're just like breath on the glass, you last for a second and then nobody remembers you. Absolutely very, very, very important. I use that a lot in assemblies. So let's get to the dialogue doctors. Okay, so... Okay, so let's have a look at the first regeneration, going way, way, way back. When it all started, as I said, this was genius. I mean, who the hell thought of this? And thank God it wasn't the Celestial Toymaker episode when he would have just changed face, wouldn't he? That would have just been horrific, that. So in this one, if you just see there, what did you say? I'll just make it big screen and just see what anyone's thoughts are. What did you say, my boy? It's all over. It's all over. That's what you said? No, but it's all over. It's far from being all over. What are you talking about? I must get back to the TARDIS immediately. I must go now. I must go at once. And that's basically it for the Doctor, First Doctor. I mean, talk about understated. Talk about enigmatic and mysterious. I'm tired. and I just need to get back to the TARDIS, to my home. I mean, I suppose some theories is we'd all like to die at home with our family surrounding us. It's that element of home, isn't it? But what are your thoughts on that? We're going back to how it all started and whether it was a good template for what came next.
Yeah, I think the fact is that the Doctor feels that the character feels the comfort of getting back to the TARDIS, which is a place of safety, and also the fact is that if anything does go wrong, you know, all the equipment is there for him to, you know, to help himself get through regeneration, I would assume. But yes, it was. I mean, but also the fact that, you know, we all know that William Hartnell wasn't quite well at the time.
Yeah,
and that's why he was given less lines and partly written out of some of the episodes of that story. So in a way, I suppose he could get through it a bit more easy if you were.
And that's a bit where Archibald Lazarus says, I like the understated. As Verity Lambert said, not everything should be explained. And what's really good is,
Exactly.
I just need to get back to the TARDIS. I'm tired. End of. Now, if I just jump for a second, I'm not going to do everyone, don't worry. But obviously, it links a little bit to what Patrick Troughton's Doctor had to explain to two very bemused. Now, you won't be able to see that. So if I just pick on one or two things. Oh, it's over. It's over. The muscles are still a bit tight. I want to hold the mirror. He takes a hold at the mirror. He wants it tilted. And then when he's had a look at it, he slags off the Doctor. He says the Doctor was a great collector, wasn't he? But you're the Doctor. Oh, I don't look like him. I don't like. And that's it. That is absolutely it. No more explanation. Nothing. Now, that's the first proper full regeneration. I'm tired. I need to get back to the TARDIS. The companions are suspicious, and I just want to look at myself. I feel a little bit tight, but thank God it's over. Basically, that's it. Now, would you like us, or do you think TV would allow us to go back to that now, or a version of that?
TV doesn't do subtleties anymore. We live in a society, and maybe it'd be nice to have a show. Maybe do that. Try to go against the mold and try to be intelligent. Novel idea. I think there's a subtlety to it. There's a mystery. And also, most of the Second Doctor's first adventure, Ben didn't believe that he was really the Doctor. So we have this, it makes much more sense for Ben and Polly to be suspicious of the new Doctor than Clara, who has seen every single Doctor and run through their timelines, should know that they change, and they change looks and go age up and down, up and down, up and down.
Yeah. I mean, DWC, I'm changing your name. JWC, did it imply that the TARDIS was a component of the regenerative process? It's a funny one, isn't it? Because when you think of how the bi-generation are the latest one, we've now almost, like in Wild Blue Yonder, you've got a burping TARDIS. A TARDIS that's blown up and is on fire on the inside and is burping away and gurgling like R2-D2. And suddenly is very human, it seems to me. But it did, when I read the book and when I watched this, when I found it, I did get the element that JWC says. I thought that you needed the TARDIS a bit like the Zero Room, that you needed that restorative power. So, as you know, with New Who, we've hardly had any regenerations going on. That we've had the Matt Smith one in the TARDIS and the Capaldi one. But, we've had we had the Eccleston one, didn't we? And the Tennant. Sorry, I'm going all wrong here, aren't I? There've been a lot of TARDIS ones, haven't there? But they blow up the TARDIS. That's the trouble.
Right.
And always crash.
It's a bit of an abusive relationship. The TARDIS is always there to help him he'll blow it up.
Yeah.
I think we've always seen, haven't we, a lot of examples of the TARDIS being there. Because they say, don't they, that I think we know now in the law that the TARDIS and the Doctor are linked. I think we've had that a few times. So I think absolutely. I mean, a lot of people said. I heard someone say that they were scared when they saw the first Doctor regeneration. They see all the levers moving on their own. You think, because you hadn't really seen that before. And of course, you would have been confused. Like, what's going on? Is he dead? Is he on the floor? So a lot of the audience would have been exactly like Polly and Ben were. And then, of course, again, like you said, the zero room, we see that the doctor or the TARDIS can assist him in his recuperation. And yeah, I think there's a lot of examples of that have been in the show.
I did think it looked quite magical and mysterious, the first Regeneration, when I saw it back all those years later. Because actually, the first time I saw that Regeneration in any form was in the 10th Planet Target book. And in that, it's just a Cyberman story and a tiny, but I was desperate for the bit at the end, and it's only a page or so, and that's it. And it doesn't really explain much. So I didn't really see all that going on. And of course, we've only got the telesnaps, really, where you see all the levers and everything. But very interesting one. Right. Still part of our dialogue doctors. Let's try, which one of you wants to pick your favorite Regeneration, one that you think we should explore in a bit more detail, and I'll put the script up. Who wants to offer one?
Caves of Androzani for 500.
Oh, yeah.
Caves of Androzani.
That's a great one.
Let's have a look. Let me see if I can count. So you can laugh in a minute if I get the wrong one. Of course, that's the fourth one.
And for the British audiences, that was a Jeopardy joke.
I haven't got the script for that, and there was a reason why, because I didn't think it was the dialogue in itself. I mean, what does he say? You can tell me, Michelle, in the Fifth Doctor Regeneration.
It's a realistic saying goodbye of somebody who's mortally wounded and is dying. I mean, it's not the big verbose that we see now, because he's sick, he's hurt, he's in the process of dying. There's a realism to it of anybody who's ever had to say goodbye to somebody that's going out. It's not for these big, long Shakespearean,
It's different this time, right? Yeah.
Yeah, it feels different this time. It was heroic. He got the bat's milk. He risked his life. He risked the mud bursts for his companion, a bit like the David Tennant risking his life for the Bernard Cribbins. And I loved the vagueness. I might regenerate. I just don't know. But it
feels different this time.
Yeah. Then you get. I mean, what do you think, Michelle? Since you mentioned it, we after Logopolis, we tend to have this kind of, all your companions say something to you, and obviously the master at the end goes all pantomime and ha ha ha, you've got to die. How did you feel about that?
It was a good way. I think it's been overused now, but at that time, that was a good use. And also, I've read a lot about the making of this episode, because it is one of my favorites. And the director was Graham Harper, was very much influenced by the last song on the the Beatles, the Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band album, that musical cacophony. And again, he was genuinely trying to do something unique and different. And then you see this lack of creativity. And just like copy and paste, and in the classic era, in this period, they're trying to do something different.
Yeah, I mean, as Willie has shown himself, you can be very creative with this Regeneration, can't you? I mean, to see it from the viewpoint of Perry's chest was really helpful. Sorry.
And the audio commentary is pretty funny. When you listen to Davison, that is pretty funny. Where he goes, Graham, what do you see when you see this? And Graham Harper just starts busting up laughing. He goes, cleavage.
And that's really funny, because we really do praise Graham as a director. Absolutely love him. And I don't know, he must have missed that. Because
I think they did.
He's gritty.
They were getting very time crunched. They're getting very time crunched at the end because Graham Harper was learning some tricks. That was his first big outing as a director doing Who, and he had made some rookie mistakes early in the filming. So there was very much of a time crunch, and they had to get a bunch of scenes after the Regeneration. The Regeneration, I think, took about a half hour, because again they had to do the lineup to get the maxing in correct of switching in and out. And there was also a couple of switching in and out costumes they had to do too.
It's interesting. I'll come back to what JWC says there, but it's fascinating when you hear about the actors with any Regeneration, it seems to me, where basically it's a very private moment. Sometimes it's a closed set. Now and again, as you've just mentioned with this one, that Colin Baker is hovering while Davison finishes off his, and then they swatch over, and Davison doesn't really have time to say anything. They have to get out the set and measure up. And it's very disconnected and clinical. which must be very strange for the actor. I remember John Pertwee saying it wasn't his favorite moment because he had to do it and then just get up and get Tom Baker down on the floor.
And also at that moment, Davison was having regrets that for the moment he'd wished he had stayed on longer because he was enjoying himself so much during the filming of Androzani. And then he says, I see some other bloke in my costume.
Yeah. Oh God. I mean, and as JWC says here, it's a J&T thing, surely. The Logopoulos and all the clips of all the, Sarah and all that. Now, and then it was done again for Caves of Androzani, and I had the shot there. But when he says it's a J&T thing, do you mean it's an Ian Levine thing? This idea that we all loved Earthshock when we saw some clips of the old Cybermen stories. The trouble is you then do it again, and you do it again in Logopoulos. So, well, I'll get the order right in a minute. And you start to doing clips in Modern Undead. Then you start doing clips in Caves of Androzani. And in the end, it becomes an excuse for lots of clips. I don't know.
Well, the modern clips in the 20th century, a lot of that had to do because it was the anniversary season.
Yeah, and I will give credit to this one because this one did actually not repeat clips. As you know, they filmed these separately, didn't they? These were new clips.
Yeah, and Sarah's son was sick with the chicken pox while filming this.
Was she?
Yeah.
So that was new. And of course, okay, we might be sick of the yellow aura, but we got that kind of strange kind of effect where it kind of zoomed at you. And then we got, we all got this. Now, how did you feel about when you saw this new Doctor? Because I do remember distinctly Robot. And I remember I loved the third Doctor so much. And I was about, 5 or 6. And I was not having it. I was not having this Tom Baker Bohemian Doctor or how he looked and messed on. I didn't like it. I couldn't trust him because he was too young and scruffy, as I saw it, rather than he wasn't the granddad anymore. And my resistance lasted about 15 minutes because obviously I loved Robot. But when I saw this, when I was a teenager, Andy, I thought, oh God, I didn't like his lines. I really struggled with his lines. You find
sarcastic from the start. Yeah.
I don't know if Peter Davison had a word with him and said, get angry with Nicola because she's just stolen the scene. And obviously who does she think she is? Because, that's been bothering me for ages now. And
from what I heard, no, Davison really didn't talk to Baker much during the train over. He said, and also it was the time crunch, and also they had to film some scenes earlier, so they were time crunching. They had to get the latex off Davison's hands for the scene wise. So there was really a lot of just switching over. From the studio floor, Baker is really nervous. You can tell he's nervous. Getting in line, he makes a joke to Graham Harper. I hope you know what you're doing.
I can imagine that it's a high pressure moment, especially in those days when they had minutes to do it.
Yeah, there's a great Twitter site because Doctor Who 1984, and they have and they go through it day by day when they film, and they have a lot of behind the scenes, and so you can see some of the behind the scenes of them referencing from Androzani. Just go back to January when they filmed those for this year for being the 40th anniversary. You can see a lot of the behind the scenes what was going on.
Well, if I can just add this Sadako 24, what bothers me is Davison's regeneration was poignant, but Colin's first lines are so bullish, they instantly kill the mood. They just seemed false to me. The egotistical bit, fair enough, because he wanted to sound an authority figure. The snag was the change, and it seems on a moment too soon. The line just doesn't seem like an authentic line. It just seems change, my dear, and it seems on a moment too soon. It's like,
it looks at the camera, right? It says that.
That's what killed it for me. Nothing against Colin. It was just I didn't like that bit at all. Now, I was going to come to you, Bobby. Script-wise, where you thought there were some good lines. Is there a regeneration where you thought, oh, I liked how that was written. I loved that regeneration.
Let's see. Well, of course, the Matt Smith one you mentioned, he gives that great speech. That's one of my favorites. And we never mentioned the Christopher Eccleston one, I think was pretty good. I'm going to change and, I don't have this daft face
Go on then.
anymore.
Which one do you want, Bobby, then?
Oh.
Which one?
Well, that's a tough. Probably Matt Smith, but Christopher Eccleston's a close second.
That's a good one too.
Yeah. Let me just get it up then. So let's have a look. That's the Capaldi, is it? Oh yeah, no. This is the Matt Smith one. I'll put it big screen because I know this pretty well, and I think a lot of people out there. I think it's this bit. There's some cleverness. I love the alliteration at the bottom. The first face this face saw. We all change, and when you think about it, we're all different people all through our lives. You see, I love that. You see, Stephen Moffat, when he's on it, really clever. We are. 1 minute in your life, or for so many years, you're single and you're a dad, or you're a husband, or you're a brother, or you're a high executive, or you're unemployed, or you're a student. I just think it's so clever. And that's okay. That's good. You've got to keep moving so long as you remember all the people that you used to be. And I used to say to the kids, yeah, we don't want ego and we don't want arrogance. Remember your mistakes. Remember those moments when you weren't as good as you were. You know, all that stuff, yeah? I will not forget one line of this. Not one day, I swear. I will always remember when the doctor was me. And I think he near the top, the breath on a mirror, and then he's a coming. Love all that. So, Bobby, is there anything you want to add since you did pick that?
Right. I think it's like stoic and very, much better than I Don't Want to Go, the one before. You know what I mean? It's
I don't want to go. I get, because who wants to die? I get that. I mean, who's
right.
volunteering?
Right.
But it's not heroic again. And actually, if David Tennant sits back and he thinks, how well was he served with a lot of the scripts? Because in some ways, his last lines, I don't want to go. And then he had to repeat it in Day of the Doctor, I don't want to go again. We need a new destination. Right. They make him a right kind of spoiled, indulgent doctor. And then, of course, we've got all the problems with the 14th Doctor. So I agree. Whereas with this one, he's very philosophical and thoughtful and sensitive. And I mean, I obviously clearly love it. The first face this face saw. And the thought that when you die, it's something from early in your life. Oh, absolutely love it. Absolutely love it. It's very Stephen Moffat, I give you an A star. Clever writing. And it's actually not that long, really. We all know the Capaldi one went on too long.
All right. Yes.
So, does anyone want to join in on the Matt Smith eulogy, or am I overdoing it?
That was beautiful. And also, if you want to cry, watch the video of Matt Smith doing the first read-through. That'll make you cry. He started crying, and then the part where he goes, I always remember when the doctor was me, and he had a hard time doing the read-through. I heard,
in one of the behind-the-scenes things, that Stephen Moffat said when they saw the cuts for that regeneration, they said I know they always say that he stormed it, but he did. I thought his acting, he looked tired and he looked thoughtful and he looked fragile. It was stunning. And so, yes, I mean, that's what we're getting to. He's a coming. Jeremy, what are your thoughts on this one? Was it overdone? Is this where it's gone wrong? Or is it?
Well, I think the best regeneration was actually the Tom Baker regeneration. Towards the end, you've got an actor who's played the part for 7 years, and then we get to this pivotal moment, which was really the best regeneration, and it's such a sad regeneration in a way, because because you've been watching Tom Baker from all of the 7 years, and it's come to an end. So that to me was quite pivotal in the series history.
Would you say, Jeremy, because when I was thinking about when I was putting this show together, I was thinking, is it because, I was a certain age and all the rest of it? And then I started thinking, the war games, the decision was Patrick Troughton out of contract. We need to go colour. We need to change things around. We need a new actor. We're worried about the ratings. La 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 la. So it's a very functional. The War Games is quite clinical in how you deal with the main actor. I have to say, we'll come to it if you want to. But Legopolis, as you just said, it was like the country was sad. I think it was a sad, he was the Doctor, and they had to give him a really good send-off.
Absolutely.
And I feel as though with David Tennant that RTD wanted to do that too. That's why he did a Cher farewell tour and kept going on and saying goodbye to half the universe first.
What was very interesting, the best moment of David Tennant coming up to the Regeneration was, where he shouts, "I've got so much more that I want to do."
Yeah.
And then, of course, the bit about "I don't want to go," which is about anger and frustration, which is very interesting, a very interesting point. But for me, I think it was Legopolis. I think was the.
Well, there's your script. I mean, it's not, the script isn't what does it, is it? I mean, if you look at it, there's lots of doctors. You get all the clips at the top there. You fall from the antenna, and
he says, the moments have been prepared for. It's the end. As far as he was concerned, of his own personal characterization, which again is very sad and very poignant.
Very poignant. I found that quite touching. Yeah. I really did. It was.
Now, from an interesting point of view, the first episode that I watched was Spearhead.
Yes.
Space. So my first recollection, of course, is the Doctor comes out of the TARDIS and collapses on the floor.
Yeah.
But I never knew there was another actor before John Pertwee or before Patrick Troughton. So I came to this afresh. So this whole business of regeneration was new to me as it got to the end of John Pertwee's regeneration under the spiders, which again was a kind of very, very sad moment. Really.
You see what I mean, and please everybody butt in, and Cinnamon, I can see you there back. So let me just put this on the big screen first. Right. It wasn't the script. So when we do the dialogue doctors, the script really didn't do anything. I think we all know the line, "The moment has been prepared for," and that basically was it. There's the Watcher element we need to talk about, because the Watcher was a new concept for regeneration. What do people think about that? We'll talk about that in a minute. The other thing was, I think it was the full 4 episodes. It had a funereal tone to it. The entropy in the TARDIS, things were dying and decaying. Legopolis was dying. There was a whole feeling that it was the end of an era, the end of the universe, the end of the TARDIS. I need to measure the TARDIS because I need to be careful. It was doom-ridden. It was funereal. And so while there weren't many famous lines, really, I mean, I could write that, I'll be honest with you, and I think we all could. It wasn't the lines themselves, it was the whole tone of the show. That's what my argument would be about this regeneration.
Yeah, it's the same with Caves of Androzani.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's a dark, moody, broody story. And we all know that, at the end of the story, Peter Davis is going to regenerate, because we were told that beforehand. So, but it sort of builds up to a crescendo towards the end, as the Doctor's carrying the TARDIS, and he's going to regenerate. So in a way, that was, a very good episode. That's why a lot of people enjoyed it.
Yeah, Graham Harper told Peter Davison that the Doctor should feel like he has death tapping him on the shoulder for the whole episode.
Yeah. I mean, basically, the regeneration stories are about the end and then new beginning.
I loved the Legopolis one. I think it was the 4 episodes in the entirety. Now, when you got to see it, Cinnamon, what did you think of Legopolis? Because you wouldn't have seen Tom Baker. You wouldn't have done the 7 years. So when you saw it, did it look as important as we think it looked?
Well, I certainly didn't see it at the time, and I always say this, but my mother wasn't born, so I certainly didn't see it. But I did see it I did see it when I was young, though. Around 2009, maybe 2010, when that New Beginnings box set came out, and it had Keeper of Traken, Legopolis, and Cash of Velvet in a 3 box set. And I remember really, really liking that. Those were some of the first early stories that I actually saw. And I always quite found it, it was a bit depressing, because I had seen the few stories that I had seen of Tom at that time, he was always quite uplifting and a bit upbeat and silly and charismatic as he always is. Then he seems to sort of like walk around like he's just like his whole life just collapsed in the stories. He always looks like he's got something like when you see the scene of him in the bridge and he's talking to the was it again? The Watcher. That was it. When he's talking to the Watcher, he always looks like every shot that he's in, he looks like he's like seen a ghost in a way. He seems like he's carrying something throughout the story, like he knows something's going to happen. And he seems to be, and yeah, like you said, the whole story, sort of like, especially the score, the music, and everything seems to be very.
Do you think that?
Slow
Do you think the
and
Watcher should?
funeral-like tone.
You know, we're sick of the yellow aura. I'll speak for myself. Do you think the Watcher could be one of those threads that is used now and again, or do you think it should be just left as a one-off? Everybody.
It's a one-off, I think.
One-off at this point, because then they wouldn't know how to use it.
It would lose its impact if you did it again. If they did it again, it wouldn't be the same.
And also, wasn't Legopolis the first time the cloister bells were ever heard too?
I think
yes,
so, maybe.
So again, that funereal sound of the cloister bell. You know, the idea that the TARDIS and the Doctor are so much in danger that they have to set this alarm off.
Well, we've got a few here to join us, Michelle. Sadako24, what doesn't sit right with me with Legopolis is the Doctor loses. He's saved worlds for 7 years, yet in Legopolis, so much of his good work is instantly undone. Now, there's two ways to look at that, I could say in a minute. And then JWC says, I didn't like Legopolis, didn't like any of Bidmead's stories apart from Frontiers. I'll say first, I liked the fight on the gantry between the Master and the Doctor because knowing what Barry Letts and Terrence Dix had said in the initial creation of the Master, he is the Sherlock Holmes to Moriarty. And when you look at Sherlock Holmes and Moriarty, we have it's not
Falls.
Yeah, the falls in either Austria or Switzerland.
The Reichenbach Falls.
Exactly. And the point is, I know they both fell in that episode, but it had an essence of that. And so I thought, I know Sadak was saying it wasn't a heroic end. He didn't save anybody. I thought him unclipping the cable did save, though.
Yeah, I wouldn't say he didn't win, but I wouldn't say he lost either. I think, well, what he lost was himself, because in order to prevent disaster and universe folding in on itself or whatever that plot line was, he has to be able to stop that. So it was. Yeah, certainly it wasn't a win, but I think it's nice to see the Doctor not always win. I think it's nice to see him maybe not always lose, but you know, in this story, he does fall, he does die, he dies saving the universe, I guess. Again, the whole plot line I didn't follow very well, but I think it's good. It keeps things fresh and keeps it deadly. You know, I like that. I like that fight scene at the top as well.
Well, the idea of the Doctor always winning turns him into Space Jesus, then.
Yeah,
it is realistic. I mean, go back to Androzani. The Doctor doesn't affect anything in Androzani. No. I mean, no one will listen to him. He's like, why won't anybody listen to me? His place of being there doesn't affect the outcome, whatever, because it was all going to happen anyways.
Yeah, exactly. And the whole thing about that was that he just got to get out there because he ain't going to solve it. He's not going to have some big come by.
He's like, you're on your own. I'm out of here. You guys just figure it out, man.
Exactly. He doesn't even care about them anymore. I mean, I like, and also I like how in the book, I'm not sure where I heard this, but I like how in the book, I think you might have told me, Michelle, in the book, how he says that he contemplates actually killing Shara's Jack.
Yeah,
and I thought that's quite mysterious because it adds more to the. Because when you see that shot of them like squaring up to each other, you can imagine that's going through his mind as he's doing that. So I like how by the end of it, it's just, well, I'm not going to save you. I'm not going to resolve this. My number one focus is getting this woman that I've just met, really, and I'm going to give my life for her. Someone I don't know. So, and I like that. I always like that part of the regeneration because I don't like to buy. I didn't buy the Big Finish stories of Peter and Nicola because if I did that, I feel like that ruins it because the whole point of that regeneration that makes it special is that he is so willing to give his life for somebody he's literally just met. But if you then listen to loads of Big Finish stories, that then expands the relationship. I find that undervalues that.
They had to cut a
Personal.
scene out where basically they say in the beginning, but they had to cut a scene out that they had just come from Planet of Fire. In fact, the idea was to start was them in the TARDIS, and he hadn't put the Doctor hadn't put his jumper back on yet, so he was still in the outfit to still look like Planet of Fire.
I thought it
But
was
they lost screening time and had to cut that out.
he was like a Prince Charming in a way when he's carrying Perry back to the TARDIS and it's exploding behind him, and he's dying. I mean, it's a classic old kind of shining knight. Yeah, you can call it patriarchal and all that stuff if you want to go down that path. But the thing is, he's heroic, and he drops some bat's milk on the way, which leads to the fact that there's not enough for him. And and of course, I think the beauty is, and I think you've said it well about this story, which is he's rudderless in that story. He's got no influence. All he can do is save Perry from a mistake when she went into the Spectrox. I loved in that episode, again, loved in that story where they were both feeling ill. You know, when they were prisoners and they were feeling ill, and you could see, and he was getting cranky with the general, but they had no sway at all. Absolutely loved it. And of course, you had a false regeneration with which I thought I was going to see regeneration when they were all shot. You know, the firing squad. And I thought, oh my God, he's going to regenerate at the end of episode 1 because that looks so. How do you get out of that? Now, that's the type of false regeneration I like. Now, I'm going to say it out loud now. Were you happy with it's been mentioned before, the hand and the meta-crisis? Because me and Jamie lived in Australia at the point that episode Journey's End was shown. And I had to come back for some reason, and Jamie was staying in Australia. So I tortured him terribly in a phone call because I said, you will not believe what's just happened. It's the most amazing Doctor Who episode ever. And I was saying, but I can't tell you anything. And he said, what? And I said, oh my God. And the to be continued. And the fact that David Tennant was regenerating, it really did look like every chat show was saying he's regenerating and we didn't know it. The surprise regeneration. Now, because of what happened afterwards with the hand and the meta-crisis and all the rest of it, I don't know if that good idea now has been spoiled. But did you like the surprise and the false dawn? A bit like I thought in Caves of Androzani that the regeneration was going to be in part 2. Did you like that episode of Journey's End and what it did? Or do you think, don't mess with regeneration, please?
Yeah, I think it's to backfoot the audience as well. And that's the reason why they partly do it. It's all right. It's okay, you know. But I think I prefer the main full regeneration as it normally.
Well, were you fooled? I was.
No, because you know, it's normally at the end of the episode that you know the Doctor should regenerate.
It is, but anyway, I'm not trying to convince you. I did fall for it. I really did fall for it. And I was excited. Jamie would tell you if he came on. I was just freaking out in not telling him anything about what had happened. Cinnamon, Michelle, Bobby, who wants to join up on the false dawn? You like that? You don't like that? You can only do it once thing?
Do it once. It was fine at the time, but now you're starting to see where one little decision sometimes can open up a door to things you don't want to go down to, plot wise.
Now, Cinnamon, now you are now alive, born. Your mum's alive as well. When this was on, how old were you when this was on?
Well, I was born in 2002, so that should make you all feel very old.
Oh God, that's the year I
came
graduated from high school.
2008. So I would have been. I think I was 7 by the time.
Did you watch this live?
So I was probably about 6 or 7 at the time. I haven't got a memory of it. I might have. I have seen it. I did see it, but I'd be saw it on a DVD. I can't remember if I saw it live. My memory back then is very, very hazy of like what my first experience was. I remember watching The Next Doctor live, but this.
Yeah.
Did it fill me? maybe, I don't know. I guess again, a bit like Jeremy, I couldn't see it happening at the end of it. I mean, I suppose nowadays you probably could, but back then it was always at the end. It was always at the end of a season. I couldn't imagine. It'd be very revolutionary if they had had an actual regeneration. Matt Smith then came in and then carried and finished the rest of the episode off for the finale. That would have been something massively new
Now,
and different.
Mhm.
And I couldn't see that happening.
I'm just challenging what you said in a nice way, which is, yeah, and like Jeremy said, well, it never happens in episode 1 or 2 or 3, so I don't know if I was fooled. But what about this then?
I don't think that didn't fool me either. I think I
No.
definitely remember seeing this live. This was a little bit. This was a few years later. It was what, 2011.
Yeah.
Yeah, this definitely didn't fool me because it was right at the start of the season.
So therefore, do
I
you
was
think,
interested in what was going on, obviously, but yeah, this didn't. I never thought for a second that he'd actually changed to another Doctor.
so therefore, was it a dud? I mean, I know he likes intrigue, but do you think having a regeneration, episode 1 of a new series, clearly nobody's going to be fooled that this is a regeneration? So therefore, does it engage you to think what's happened? Because I actually watched this episode the other day and I thought, what the hell? I'm all confused here. You know what I mean? I just thought you're
Well,
messing.
Series 6 was very confusing. in
Yeah,
general, but
that
they did it again, didn't they? In Series 10 with with Peter, when he got shot by a blank and he wastes loads of his regeneration energy. Remember when River chastised him for using a little bit to fix a broken hand, and then he just like the 12th Doctor just, like, exudes lots of it, and then just claps his hands and goes, "Oh, well done!" Like, well,
Well,
you probably just cost a whole regeneration cycle there.
So you've got the River Sun example that you've just mentioned, the one I've just shown from the Impossible Astronaut. I'll throw this in as well, and please tell me how you felt about this one. The Witch is Familiar. Because
yeah, I forgot about this one as well.
yeah, we've been playing with regeneration an awful lot in New Who. RTD and Stephen Moffat have really played around, and it's just whether you think it was clever. You know, there's the yellow aura again. I'm going to nick a bit, and I was watching this earlier today, and of course, every Dalek starts to get a bit of that yellow aura around them, and you're thinking, this is like timeless children. This is the cyber time lords. You know, this is. Oh, I don't know. Anyway, you're getting my opinion. But what did everybody think of the use of false dawns, the River Sun example of wasting a bit of essence of regeneration? The Witch is Familiar. Are people happy with this? Am I just being too grumpy? What's going on?
I wouldn't say it's being grumpy. I don't think it's fair. I wouldn't blame you if you have an issue with it at all. I think, yeah, like I said before, it's treated as something special. So to have it, I can get my words out. To have it appear in, every other story, every now and then, just to use it a bit here to fix somebody. Oh, use it a bit there to give somebody a bit of life. It's like, it's like, oh god, guys, it was a regeneration energy, and they're doing it again, and it's like, it should be saved. We're seeing a lot of it now.
Yeah,
when they're messing about with regeneration and the numbering and throwing doctors here, there, and everywhere, it's a sacred thing. It's important, a big thing
now.
And,
it's right.
yeah, and I just think to use it willy nilly is just, they need to slow down on the usage of it.
It's a bottomless well. You have no way. It used to be you had so many numbers. I mean, yeah, even in the classic era, they had Modern Undead, where they tried to steal the Doctor's remaining time regenerations to cure the weird little decrepit guys. It still had a number, so there was a risk to it. Now it's an untapped source. So we laughed at the 12 Doctor joke that he goes, I could just stand here and regenerate all day. Well, yeah, because it's a bottomless well. There's no risk to how many the Doctor has or how many the Doctor's going to use up now.
I mean, you've got 2 examples here, and please, everybody, please join in what you think about the thread. Are really helpful. JWC, first of all, sorry, that was that one. But they should have left regeneration alone. They've used it as a plot device rather than letting it be part of just the Time Lord cycle when basically an actor changes. You've weaponized it. And Sadako, who had it on screen then, by Which is Familiar, I'd begun to stop caring. I have to say, it lost its qualities. I just thought, here we go again. Remember, we saw this with Mordrin Undead. I am not always just knocking New Who. with classic Who, we had Mordrin Undead. There were 8 of those kind of whatever you call them, 80s victims. They looked very delicate, and they wanted his remaining regenerations. And I didn't like that episode. I just didn't like that idea. Playing around with it too much, it's no longer sacred, it's no longer rare, it's no longer of value. It is now just something to play with. And that's when I thought Moffat plays too much with all this. Jeremy, you're studiously listening or thinking Brendan's off on one. Do you really think this has been messed up and we can get it back? Do you think too much farting around going on here?
I think because over the years, because you've had the transmogrification, and producers have thought, well, that's a little bit boring. Can we do something a little bit more different?
Yeah.
But now the different that they're doing is obviously, sparks from the hand and head, etc., etc.
Yeah.
And it becomes something that destroys the inside of the TARDIS, which is ridiculous, really, when you think about it.
Totally.
So I think they need to go back to sort of the original, and just have a straightforward transmogrification. But obviously use a bit of CGI. But if you want to up the game a bit, do it with the music. With a crescendo of music, and just try something a bit more different, but going back to the way that it used to be a little bit.
Right. I'm going to ask you all 3 of you. I'll see if we get Bobby back. But right, you 3. Here's a question, and it's going to really test you and those in the thread. Right. Here we go. My question was it RIP, regeneration, or can it be revived? Let's just assume it's been messed around with a little bit. Right. I want you to be script writers now, and I want you to think of not a whole plot, because that's just ridiculous. Can you think of a context or a situation you think would be a good future regeneration for a Doctor? A setting, and a cause or something they've done? What would you like it brought back to? Because it's been done in so many different ways. You can be saving the whole of the universe, i.e. Logopolis. You can be saving one person like Bernard Cribbins, like Nicola Bryant. Do we go back into the TARDIS? Does it need to be somewhere remote? I mean, we'll look at Capaldi's false one, where he was on a battlefield, with a crying Cyberman, that kind of thing. So, in essence, what do you think would be a really good situation for a regeneration in the future to get it back to what you think it should be? Who wants to start on this one? Since didn't know I was going to ask you this.
I can have a go.
Go
my favourite regeneration was always the 10th Doctor's, because that was not only was it the first one I saw, but I felt like it was the most impactful. I can remember where I was thinking about it now, and that was and I watched it because me and my girlfriend. I've introduced the show to my girlfriend, and we watched it a few weeks ago. And I was in tears.
Okay.
I was in tears in it because it was, even though I've seen it so many times, and I just thought, because I had that connective tissue with it, because I guess with you were already an adult by the time you saw it, so you have a different experience with it. But that was the first one that I saw. That was the first time I saw a Doctor change.
Can I hear it now?
And I think, was it? Yeah, I was about 7 at the time, maybe 8. And it was very sad because they treated it like death. And I know everyone had a problem with him having a meltdown at the end of it. Oh, I can do so much more. And everyone had a problem that said, oh, it's out of character. I disagree. I think it was very in character for this Doctor, because he was a vain Doctor. He grew overconfident. He grew very, not quite as egotistical anywhere near as Colin, but it was very, I think, scene of him in the next Doctor when everyone's waving and he's ringing the bell and he's sort of loving it. He did. I think he grew quite, egotistical in a sense, not as extreme as others, but and he wanted to go out in a blaze of glory, and he said, "Oh, when Rassilon says you'll die with me," and he says, "I know." That's what he wanted. That he was happy to go out then, but when he finds out he's still alive, he's rejuvenated, excited. He thinks he's survived, and then when he's finds out the phone knocking of Wilf, and then he realizes this big, bombastic, massive, heroic ending. I've got to save one person, one old man, really, and he's like,
And
Oh, just leave me. I've had my time. He could have left him. Could have easily left him, of course, but he can't because he doesn't go out to be he doesn't go out being an action hero. He goes out being a hero, doing saving one person, not saving the whole planet in a big massive fireball and a whole big him versus the Time Lord. It's saving one guy. So and that
have you
battles
read?
with him because it's like it humbles him. That's what it's about. It humbles him. So that's why I've always liked that regeneration and the whole thing about him basically having a meltdown at the end. I thought that was very in character for him. And I didn't think it was drawn out, and everyone had a problem with him being drawn out and seeing everybody. That makes sense because it was a goodbye not only to this Doctor but to the entire Russell T Davies era. Sorry, go on.
So there was a bit of an indulgence of the showrunner, you're saying then. But have you seen or read or heard about the writer's tale when he talked about how he did this regeneration? Because I love the writer's tale, I have to say. I mean, RTD, I have this strange relationship with really because he's got some brilliant stuff and some less, awkward stuff here. But I did find that in the writer's tale, in the end, he liked that idea because he was joining the dots. He hadn't decided quite what he was going to do. He had the 4 Nox idea before he had the finish, but he liked the idea that this alien, this person who can solve this and solve that, in the end, it was all down to one person. And
exactly, he doesn't get that big ending. He doesn't get the big, heroic. I've just saved the day. It's just like I said a moment ago. It humbles him, and that contradicts with how the whole thing about the Time Lord Victorious. You go really in a sense, full of himself in a way, and to have again that humbling experience of just one person. You had to go in bloody stupid box. And like you see how it battles with that. I've always liked it. I've always loved how they treated it as a death, and people will say, "Oh, why did this Doctor have such an issue with regeneration when the Ninth didn't?" Well, you've got to treat it like every Doctor is different. Obviously, they're all the Doctor, obviously, but each. It's like me. It's like if all of us here, if I died, then I turned into Brendan, and he had all my memories. He had my memories, but we're still different people. So you still got to sort of treat each Doctor as separate in a way. And when you see that scene of him in Wilf and the Calf, I mean, that is powerful stuff. I've always liked this story. I've always thought it was a very appropriate end. I've never had a problem with the fact they treated it like death. In fact, I thought that was the best part of it because it is death. Slightly undermines it when you bring him back 15 years later to be able to play the Doctor again, but that's another thing. But I've always liked the fact that they treat it like a death because it should be like a death. It's this Doctor is dead. That incarnation is dead.
But the thing, Brandon, that I've found confusing in how they've evolved this an awful lot, and you've kind of mentioned a lot of things there, but one of them with the meta crisis and the 14th Doctor one, compared to this David Tennant first incarnation one, is when I watched Regenerations, I thought it was like a death because that personality was gone. And they almost don't remember what the other one does. And when you had the 3 Doctors, they don't really know what each of them have been doing. It's like they're separate. They have to mind meld. Now, if they had an awareness of each other, they wouldn't have to mind meld. So you had that idea. But then suddenly later on, when it gets to the Star Beast, you've got that whole idea of, when you got the Donna Noble with her daughter saying, because we're women, we're better and more special, that thing. And it was as if, because I've got a female mind, I know better than you with the same information. And now suddenly we're now treating it as if you still have the same mental consciousness all the time, rather than actually that personality dies. Yes, you know how to run the TARDIS, but that's it. Well, actually, look at them when they're regenerating now. Sometimes they don't know how to drive it. So I know it's a really interesting one. Now, before I ask Michelle and Jeremy on their thoughts, I just want to make sure I update on the thread because there were some interesting thoughts on this. It should be the final option, something that happens when all hope has gone. It's a way of saying goodbye rather than an easy cop-out. So I suppose, JWC, you're saying we go big. It might be one person, but it's very, very final. It's not a kind of Colin Baker-esque finish.
But to answer your question about how would I do it and how would I put it on, I would say just to have it be a humbling experience, have it be sad because I think regeneration should be treated like a death, because I believe that's what it is. Have it be sad, but have it be like heroic. Have it again like you could have it like the 11th. He just spends his time protecting a little village, which he then kind of destroys with the regeneration. But he devotes his time, looking out for the little people. A big drawn out epic battle. Like I guess a little bit with his regeneration, I'm making a last stand, which I suppose I just keep it humbling, which I like it like that. Keep it high stakes, but I'll just keep it like doing what the Doctor does best, looking out for the little people.
So I appreciate that. I'm not trying to butt in because there's some interesting thoughts you're saying. Obviously, you can see I'm advertising Tuesday, and we've mentioned Russell Davies a bit here and my love-hate relationship with him, and it is true. When he's on it, he's really on it, and when he does other things, I sometimes wonder what is he doing. So, of course, you know me now, everybody. It's a binary question. Russell Davies, showrunner savior or showrunner destroyer? That's our Tuesday 4 p.m. show. And by God, there's a lot of meat there. Where would he start? So that's Tuesday. So Darko24 was starting to say, I kind of like the idea maybe that if they'd had time of the Doctor regenerate an old man in his bed years after the final battle. Is that too quiet? I don't know. And last one before I ask Michelle and Jeremy. I'd like the Doctor to lose his memory, at least to an extent. He has too much knowledge of the universe and monsters, and I dislike it when he falls back on that rather than using his intelligence. I know he now he is this super space Jesus, I think Michelle called it. Whereas in Pyramids of Mars and stuff like that, when you're up against Sutek, he still had to be on his wits regarding force fields and everything, and timings between Mars and Earth. Jeremy, you've been waiting patiently for a while. You've got the War Games there. You've got various decent. You've got Planet of the Spiders there. Now, and Robot. What would make a good regeneration in the future to get it back to where it should be?
Well, for me, it doesn't matter too much whether it's a quiet regeneration, where John Pertwee comes out of the Third Doctor comes out of the TARDIS and says, I'm exhausted, basically, but the TARDIS brought me back safely, and then collapses on the floor. I mean, that to me is a very good regeneration. And so the Gopolis, where you've got the Doctor, totally exhausted, I'm tired, and that's it. And so, and then he regenerates. Or, you can have a big event, say like David Tennant, when he regenerated. That's good in its own right as well. But I think in the future they may have to sort of vary it somehow, and whether they just vary it with, just introducing the new Doctor without a regeneration, that would be different. Well, it might be different.
Would you feel deprived?
I don't think it would bother me too much now, come to think of it, because I think because we've had so many regenerations where it's a big event, and the Doctor gives off all this energy, etc., etc. Maybe it's time for a change in the direction of regeneration. I can understand what Russell T Davies was trying to do with the bi-regeneration.
Yeah.
But I think he's gone off in the wrong direction with that one. And whether that's just a plot device to bring David Tennant back for whatever reason in the future, which I assume it is, maybe he's keeping his options open in that respect. But I don't think the bi-regeneration works. I'd rather have had Jodie Whittaker change into Nakuti, even if it was done off screen. And so the first episode that you get was with Nakuti, rather than bring David Tennant back, which I think in retrospect now was a mistake. And it was a gamble, but I don't think it fully paid off.
Yeah, I think that's been part of the problem, isn't it? That it was a gamble, and I don't quite think it has worked in that respect.
But also to have the first episode of Nakuti's tapped on at the end of David Tennant's, again, was a mistake. It's the twin dilemma all over again, because what they should have done was to start the first episode of the season that's coming up in May as Nakuti's first episode. basically.
I agree, and the trend dilemma wasn't meant to be at the end, was it? And so they lost that punch that they could have had with a new Doctor there. This, since you mentioned the third Doctor's regeneration, it had been in the thread earlier, a tear, Sarah. It was one line, wasn't it? Just one line. That's all it took. You also had the element that I found this an interesting regeneration because he'd been a jewel thief. Basically, he'd been a naughty boy. He'd done some heist on Metabilis 3, hadn't he? Nicked the blue crystal, and he knew he was wrong. And this story was about personal atonement. Now, I know Barry Letts with the Buddhism element, but I do love this. You've done something wrong as a human being. I know he's not human, but it's a reflection on us all the time. And you need to atone. And the atonement was to go back and face your fears, really. He knew he was going to die there. And I thought that was a very personal journey that the third Doctor, who always was very strident, anti-establishment and all that, and he was always telling people off with rules and regulations. But in the end, he had to be quite humble.
Well,
and he had, sorry.
Sorry. What I like about it is obviously the actor is acting, and you can see, I'm tired, it's coming to an end, basically. I mean, obviously that's all a personal feeling for the actor as well.
Yeah.
And this is my last scene, could be my last scene. And so it sort of dovetails very well all together.
And I do think it's part of the element of where are we with the actor? And he'd done 5 years. He'd done at that point the longest stint. We knew he wanted to stay on. But I just love this.
He was ready to go. It was his decision to leave. For at least, yeah, he had kind of lost a little bit after Delgado had died, and his love of it was. Now they always have regrets going out a little bit, but he was ready. I mean, he was ready to go.
Yeah. No, I know you get different stories, don't you? You get that version, which I understand. His team, Katie had gone, blah, blah, blah. He knew that the unit team was going to be disbanded to a degree. He knew the new producers were coming in. I know there was negotiations over price as well and all the rest of it. But yeah, it was a sad one and it was done quickly. I feel so bad about Capaldi because he did regenerate well before they brought him back to do it again. He had a lovely heroic end. Now, excuse me, I'm burping away there. So, Michelle, your perfect finish for a Doctor of the Future.
We're going to have to, change it a bit. This idea that every regeneration episode, the Doctor faces the biggest, the baddest, the most evilest of villain of all time. The stakes are high. We hear that from Power. We hear that needs to go back down again to like and Rosani to a 10th Doctor. The personal, he dying, saving just one person or a village. So after the 11th Doctor regenerated, I heard that the glaziers, the glass workers had a really good year after that, fixing up all of the windows he busted. So far, I've heard the economy went really good that year.
Definitely. Well, exactly. Bobby, right, let me just check if we've got you going there. So, Bobby, what would be a good regeneration for the future? To get it right. We need to get back to what are the basic rules about regeneration. So I'm not asking you to come up with a story now, otherwise you might as well. Right. But I'm just saying generally, what would you say would be a good situation for the Doctor to regenerate in? Saving the galaxy, in the TARDIS. What would you like to see them doing that would kind of get it back to where we think it should be?
Yeah, I think saving the galaxy and just do like with Caves and Androzani had a little explosion. If it got into that kind of stuff, I think, and with better technology, it would work.
Because earlier Michelle was talking about the space Jesus element.
Oh, that right. Yeah, that was a bit much. Yeah, I mean,
I'm just thinking when you mentioned saving the galaxy, a bit like the Goblins, is it a risk now with the way the new Who is made that if we did a saving the galaxy thing, like blasting every Dalek ship out the universe. It might just go a little bit CGI light, CGI heavy, but emotion light.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, this is probably just classic who had the, I think, better way to do it, you know? So you go back to basics, I guess, right?
Yeah, because I found it interesting when Jeremy mentioned the Third Doctor. He mentioned a few, but he mentioned the Third Doctor's regeneration first. The third regeneration is very like William Hartnell's in a way. He's tired. The body's knackered. It's just very sad.
Natural?
It's like it's like a sad death, isn't it? That's it. William Hartnell's, as in the First Doctors, he'd fought the Cybermen and he was knackered.
And then the Savages, wasn't Jano? He was absorbing his life force and he was drained from that too. I believe, a couple stories earlier, right?
The idea of the Doctor being tired isn't new. Right. So that was earlier criticism during the 14th Doctor. Well, we're seeing it in the classic era too.
Yeah. And it's a complex one. I think with most of our discussions, including tonight's, it's not classic who gets it right, new who gets it wrong. It's not at all. I think classic who has sometimes set the seeds of a problem later on. And I think if anybody missed the beginning, we basically said that the Colin Baker regeneration, obviously he wasn't going to be there, was a weak one because he wasn't being heroic. Now, what was I going to say then? I was going to
I didn't mind that one, funny enough.
Go on then. Well, Jeremy, defend it for a second. Go on, because we laid into it earlier.
I like the fact that you start with, the TARDIS is spinning out of control. We don't know whether the Doctor hit his head on the console or not. So we don't know the background of that. So, Bonnie Langford, a Melanie and the Doctor are thrown about in the TARDIS. Perhaps he does fall on the floor and it triggers off a regeneration. But I like the bit when, he's on his face and he's turned around and then he regenerates. And also you've got the music as well, which I think helps that one. But I mean, obviously, the wig on Sylvester McCoy wasn't a great fitting wig, but I don't know. I quite like that one. I mean, the story wasn't great, but
Yeah. I
kind of feel the wig. You can see the ear. You see the ear doesn't change. That's the funny part.
Yeah.
Not the wig, it's the ear.
But it would have been better if his head was underneath the TARDIS. You just saw a bright light.
Yeah.
And that trap turned him around, and then he sort of came out from underneath the TARDIS, and you saw Sylvester McCoy, and that would have worked just as well.
Yeah, I think classic Who then was trapped by they think they have to show you the regeneration. And I think in some of our discussion that we've already said, do you really always have to show it? Now, in the thread earlier, and we are a regeneration special. I've got to go to this one because we haven't mentioned it yet. The thread has Night of the Doctor. Now, was this a good regeneration? It was how old was it? About 8 minutes long, the episode. I will quickly say I absolutely loved it. But it did fall into a bit of the Destiny of the Daleks Romana element because the Sisters of Khan said, do you want to be a war doctor, or this doctor, or that doctor? He had a kind of choice, didn't he? And although they had the potion ready for him, so I'm not sure how that worked, or whether they knew what the answer was, I don't know. But basically, he could choose who he was going to be. But anyway, I thought the way it was presented, the music, the direction, and the situation, because he was trying to save the other woman he just met on that spacecraft. And of course, he needs to be strong now for what's coming next with the Time War. That's my thoughts on this one. Anybody's thoughts on the regeneration, since it was cranked in there for our 50th? Is it a good one?
Yes.
But
why didn't they back up the TV movie with
definitely
six episodes? Or they could have even done a special one-off episode with Paul McGann featuring that insert.
It's always a funny one when people are talking, and I'm trying to help the thread out as well because they're agreeing with us and joining in. The sparkling lemonade caused that regeneration. I know they had it ready, but yes, I like that one. I saw Michelle say you like that one. Michelle, were there any other elements about that? I mean, should we do something like this again?
It is, and it's creepy. And when you read the target novelization of this, it talks about it's in first person. It's like, I killed the doctor, and you're thinking it's the priestess from Karn. It's actually the war doctor talking in the target novelization for that opening chapter. So it is a very atmospheric, very it fits in for that storyline of the bringing in the war doctor.
And because it was a quickie, he couldn't have all the clips of all his companions because, of course, they're all on Big Finish, but
Right.
he could mention them. He could mention them.
That
So
was
we had an element. It was Legopolis and Caves slightly.
Mhm.
Cinnamon, Night of the... I think you said that you liked this as well.
Yeah, I saw it when it came out. Didn't it come out before the actual 50th came
Yeah.
out? It was on the 14th.
Yeah,
or
it
something.
was an
Yeah.
insert.
So I do remember seeing this, and I remember being quite surprised because I didn't know who it was. So the fact that we actually got, you know, a little bit more of the Doctor was only for a small time. I think it was good. It was a good decision because it gives him a regeneration, which I think he needed. It gave it that kind of chapter of Doctor Who, which was a very, very, very unexplored part of Doctor Who. But to give it a resolution of some sort, they didn't have to do this. To be fair, I don't think. I know people might say, "Oh, it was a plan for," or they should have, if they couldn't get Chris to come back, they should have got the Eighth Doctor to come back. But the way I see it is that they didn't even have to do this. So I thought it was great extra, and I think they took special care as well not to ruin it and to spoil it.
But coming on what Jeremy was saying earlier, I find this really interesting. We don't surely have to see the Doctor regenerate because, Jeremy was saying he liked the Colin Baker, Sylvester McCoy regeneration, but if they hid his face or something, it would have been more straightforward to show. But I was saying as well, it seems that Classic Who thinks they have to keep showing the actual regeneration. And of course, look at it. We've fallen into that. This completed it. We could see the Paul McGann regeneration. We saw the Chris Eccleston, John Hurt regeneration. And I felt it at the time. I thought, oh, thank you, Moffat. You've given us all, you've joined it all up. Thank you. As if I needed it. So are we fans just too contrary? Do we need to see the regeneration or do we not?
I'd say we do. It's a pretty big change. It's like I say, it's one of the biggest parts of this. I know we didn't see Second Doctor, but I guess that couldn't be helped because they hadn't cast Pertwee at the. Apart from that, it's a big part of the show. You couldn't have, just one Doctor just never just disappear and then never not have it explained, and then Tom Baker just show up randomly. I think you'd have to, how you do it. You can be flexible with how you do it, but I think absolutely you have to show it.
Well, we've got
just continuity.
People are answering us. JWC says we never saw the regeneration in War Games. We just saw the build up to it and Spearhead from Space followed on. I agree. Origin Production says, yes, we do need to see every regeneration. I'm slightly more with you, but I agree, JWC, we didn't see it with the War Games, although I was alive, Cinnamon, but I wasn't watching Doctor Who because I was about.
It's like I said, it couldn't be helped because they hadn't cast the next one at the time.
I know that's it. And then Origin Productions is really now starting to really test our panel. That's my headcanon of where Joe Martin fits in. Yes, this is the talk, isn't it? That does Joe Martin's fugitive Doctor is that the gap? I don't know. Origin Productions. I don't know where the fugitive. I mean, we all say that the fugitive Doctor's TARDIS interior does look as though it's from that era. And whether it's left as a
they say that these are the two sort of main theories that she's pre-Hartnell or she's in between. She's series 6B, as they say, sort of the second but before the third. And I have a problem with that one as well in a way because, well, if she is after the second Doctor, well, if she was a secret regeneration that was somehow wiped, so then they got the second Doctor, changed him into Joe Martin, got him to do some jobs, and then switched him back, made him regenerate into the third, completely wiped that whole iteration in between. But then mean that we wouldn't be able to get the 11th. That would have used up a whole. And that's what I mean. And it's it's like, well, are we like to leave that there? Like, a spare one. It seems like a lot of way to make that fit.
Right. we've got Cinnamon, we've got an argument. I'm going to right here. Good old Origin Productions. Well, I'd prefer that to the bloody timeless children's stuff. It works better, Cinnamon. Division is the CIA of that era, a Gallifreyan Black Ops. So basically, that would be better than the times. The thing is, I know, and I know what you're saying, Cinnamon. I know how I feel about it. Yes, that's my line in the sand. Yeah, I don't want Fugitive Doctor to be pre-Hartnell, so that means as a fan, I've got to compromise somewhere, and I suppose that's where the big gap is. Anybody's thoughts on Fugitive Doctor? We're talking about Regeneration. Where? Look, you can't cancel her. She does exist. So where would you be comfortable the Fugitive Doctor fitting into this? Jeremy, you're looking miles away there. That's because I've done this camera shot, but you've got the doll, though, haven't you? You've got the Fugitive Doctor's doll.
Yes, I've got it. I've got it here. If you want to see it.
So that means you believe in her, then.
Yes and no.
I've got it as well. You've got it.
It was never explained. That's the thing with Signal. He never bothered to explain it, and he passes it off as a, we'll leave it as a mystery. Well, no, because that was your biggest plot line. The whole time his child was your big multi-season arc, and you've left it unexplained. This is the problem. This is why I have such a huge problem with that in that Doctor, because you can't be pre-Hartnell, but then you can't be Series 6B or whatever that is either, because again, for that to happen, the Time Lords would have had to have given her some sort of secret encounter from the Joe Martin Doctor. Then once they were happy when she'd done some, switch it back. Okay, then you've set it so that she has the normal 13 lives again. Then have it's a whole lot of like going out of the way. It's a whole lot of clasping at straws to even make that. It doesn't make sense. It's better than the alternative of the former, but neither is great, to be honest. Contradicts the 13 limit for me. There's no way around it.
Well, I mean, honestly, we're going to have to get Origin on sometime, because they're really
bring him on. Come on.
Yeah, they're really going for it here. So, as you're saying, Cinnamon, you see, this is what I mean. You know what we fans are like. If we don't like something, we'll da-da-da-da. But then the other issue is, shall we leave it unexplained? Because isn't that better than it being explained? Because then
you could argue that is true. But I will concede this. People in the chat saying by Regeneration, that could work if somehow, if you say a former Doctor that was supposed to die, like we said that earlier, maybe Sylvester didn't die, or maybe maybe we could say like this, perhaps when the second Doctor was supposed to regenerate into John Pertwee, he didn't. He still lived, and then they got him to do some extra jobs, and then got Joe Martin because it could work. Because that, and said it himself, in a splintered timeline now that we do have multiple Doctors. So again, I think that's probably the best we're going to get for now, unless Russell decides himself to explain it. But I would say, like JWC says, and Origin Productions says, Bioregeneration is probably the best way to go for that. But also, like you said, maybe leaving it unexplained is probably better. Who knows?
Go on, Jeremy.
But this is Russell T Davies trying to justify what Chris Chibnall has done.
Yeah.
And it's everybody. It's like the club, really, like Moffat and Russell T Davies and Chris Chibnall. It goes round and round in circles, and it's no good saying, well, what we've done is a good job, when fans are saying, actually, no, it isn't. We don't agree with by regeneration. We think it's a lousy idea, which I think it is. But it depends on what Russell T Davies has done it for, presumably to bring back David Tennant. But I would rather that it sort of go back to how it used to be, personally, because I think it works better that way.
I think a busy universe of millions of Doctors just frightens me. It worked in a way with Day of the Doctor, with all the all 13, was it 13 Doctors or whatever? Yeah, and you had the spinning TARDISes, and that was contrived, but it worked. I mean, again, Moffat can do it right when he had this idea that every Doctor has been thinking about this and that kind of thing. But now we've got so many doctors and so many versions of everything, and people in a thread are saying, is this an alternative doctor, old universe, by generation? I mean, I know, Jeremy, you're saying, is it for the reason you've said? The other which was the David Tennant one, or is by generation to actually start the Marvel universe of Doctor Who thing?
No, nobody can accept the fact that, and it's true, we can't accept the fact that David Tennant, the regeneration of going into David Tennant, will sort of settle down and have a quiet life. It just doesn't work out right. It doesn't sound right, and it just doesn't work out right. The only way they can do it is to have the Kuti go back into the regeneration of David Tennant, an unby regeneration, and then for David Tennant to regenerate properly in the way that all the doctors have done, and do it that way.
And as is it Dada Debasa is saying here, it's just a mess. Too many ponderable.
It clearly shows that it's clean, straightforward. It's a whole hullabaloo about, they've done this. They've made it more complicated what it needs to be. They've made it used to be a one-time event, usually 3 or 4 years, and it was going fine. And then they throw here and there. And as much as I like the War Doctor, the Future Doctor, at the end of the day, they're both put in there, and it started a trend because once Moffat did it, Chibnall, because as he always does, he copies everything everyone else does, and then he did it himself. Yeah. We've got doctors thrown here left, right, and centre. We've got the whole Children in there. You've got changing regeneration and by regeneration now. Again, it's really convoluting it. I long for the days of just, the first sort of 10 doctors, and you could, really understand and follow them all. Back when we all thought it was, Paul McGann to Chris. They've really been quite heavy on messing around and playing, and they're trying to be clever. It ruins it for me. It ruins the immersion when you can't put the answers. And I suppose there's always a mystery to it. I don't want it to be revealed, but when you've got more questions than answers, and there's too many contradictions, and as I say, Doctor Who doesn't have a canon. Of course it does. It's just nonsense, but it's definitely not perfect. I mean, it's natural, because when you've got a show that's been around for 60 years, you're going to have a few blots that are a bit, there's a few cracks in there. It's natural.
Yeah. I mean, regeneration is just really a plot device for an actor to move on to do something, and that's it. It's not really something to play around with to show other actors in, just because, well, we want this particular person to be a doctor, but we don't know how this person fits into the lineup, or she's before the first Doctor. Well, then the first Doctor can't be the first Doctor, William Hartnell.
Yeah,
it's shoehorning another actor and another actor in before that and another actor in before that. So it blows apart everything the BBC has done to establish the first Doctor as the first Doctor, and the first regeneration was William Hartnell into Patrick Troughton. But that can't be, according to Chris Chibnall and Russell T Davies, because all Russell T Davies is doing is confirming exactly what Chris Chibnall's origins of the character are or were.
Which you shouldn't do. Bobby, I'm keen to bring you in because you've been listening for ages there. Bobby, anything you want to add? We're covering any regeneration. We're talking about the mess if you think it's a mess. Dada Debasa says it's a mess. You may disagree. I mean, what just your thoughts very briefly on this?
Yeah, the bi-generation's a mess because it's there was the point where Shooty said push. It's like he's giving birth. So it's I don't know. Would he undo it, RTD? I don't know. He wants to go forward with this. Yeah, that's the question, right?
I mean, in the old-fashioned regenerations, I even like the fun that you'd get. Like I think Michelle was saying, Colin Baker is much different physique to Peter Davison, and had to kind of get into a version of that outfit. Right. And it always looked quite funny. Peter Davison in all that bohemian Tom Baker gear looks dwarfed in it. He looks tiny in it, and he looks like a child almost. And it was almost quite interesting to see the doctor regenerate into the other doctor's clothes to show how ill-fitting they were, and you need to find your new identity and your new kind of way of doing things. I kind of like that. I know it's a bit of froth, but now we've got with the bi-generation, the underpants issue. We had the issue just with the Jodie Doctor, where, of course, the Jodie Doctor regenerated, but the clothes just completely changed. And it's these little inconsistencies I can't stand. And I think Michelle and others have said this before, that, oh, well, they did this regeneration change with their clothing because we can't embarrass David Tennant in women's clothes, blah, or, a version of that. Okay. Right. If we're trying to protect David Tennant from...
It was Russell who said that. It was Russell who says because of drag.
Then Sacha Dhawan was wearing it. I mean, Jodie's clothes,
Sasha could actually knock it out of the park there.
Yeah, he did.
So if that is the issue, if that was a real live issue that we're worried about the actor and how they will look, because obviously you want to respect them, then how the hell did they allow this one? Because there's David Tennant already looking pathetic as the 14th Doctor, and there's Ncuti Gatwa with a more muscular frame in his white undies and stealing the scene. And and what looked like a tiny thing for me in the past, the Doctor doesn't fit the clothes, he'll have to get a new kind of set. This has now become a thing. Bobby?
Yeah, get kind of campy, right? Doing that, just having him in his undies.
In fact, Ncuti said they didn't film that together. And it was David Tennant who figured out which clothing he was going to go with that and which one was going to Ncuti. So. Yeah,
it wasn't his right. Well, it wasn't his fault. Yeah.
Yeah, Ncuti got what was decided on a film set that he wasn't on. That they were filming 2 different days.
And this is the issue. Look, Origin Productions, I have no issue with bi-generation, to be perfectly candid. As long as it's done right, and with RTD, I trust him to make it more engaging than Chibnall's failure. And then we've got JWC. This is the thing. And please, Origin, please understand, our show is not to pile drive into New Who. It's not, because I do like so much of what Russell does. He's very creative. And looking at the whole show tonight, you'll see that there's a lot of classic Who that made mistakes. But it's just I am somewhat worried about where bi-generation could take us. Of course, we don't know yet. So I've just got to say, I just don't know where we're going with it. But yeah, we shall see. I know. Right. Well, we've done a hell of a show, and I can't keep you going forever, as regeneration would keep you all 5 of us here going forever. We need a life, just like the Doctor does. But as you can see, the Tuesday show is advertised there and has been for a while. And everybody, remember the liking and subscribing. We do exist as a channel, and since we were talking about bi-generation there, I have said, please, if you haven't yet, give us a subscription. We're trying our best. And your subscription will go into Galactic Credits, so we can actually help maybe the mental health of this 14th Doctor, because all he's got to face is Donna Noble, and she can have a right rant, as you know. And if she sides with Rose, her daughter, they'll just patronize him all the time. So, we do need to help him and give him an outlet and get him a counselor or something. So please, get that subscription button pressed, for goodness sake, help him out. And if that doesn't convince you, well, as you know, the 2 Who puppets have been to Spain, and they've been trying to kind of really entertain you, doing Dragonfire elements. They've really tried to really deliver for you. So please, give us a subscription, please. And if that's not good enough, remember, there is this coming soon. last advert there.
I've got a
it
question.
took
Who ate the twirl?
Who did what?
Who ate the twirl in the fridge?
That was Jamie. I'd already eaten. I can't remember what I'd bought, but yeah, it was already eaten. Yeah, what there's a zero room and everything to say. I have to say, there's loads of stuff, but I cannot indulge myself anymore. Jeremy, Michelle, Cinnamon, and Bobby, you've given us so much of your time. Thank you for that. It's hard, isn't it, with something like Regeneration, because we're covering 60 years. But thank you. We've tried our best. Hopefully, we've been fair to each era, each producer, each actor, and each story. But thank you in the thread for being with us. And I think it's really, I've really enjoyed it. We've solved a few problems, I think. So I think on that note, I think we'll all say goodbye. So good night, everybody. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
And we'll see you Tuesday at 4.